I'll call the meeting to order. This is the June 8, 2021 meeting of the Town Planning Commission for the Town of Fairfield. The first item on our agenda is the executive session and the minutes. I'm sorry. My agenda just disappeared. The trouble with computers. Bills and communications, the meeting minutes from May 25, 2021. Move to approve by Commissioner Corcoran. Can I have a second? Second by Commissioner Brayman. Thanks. Any questions about the minutes, the comments? I didn't find any errors. None. Are we ready to vote? Okay, all in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Oh, sorry, housekeeping item. Commissioner Noonan is absent, and we have Commissioner Gordon, who will sit in his place this evening. Thank you very much, Commissioner Gordon. When we're waiting for Commissioner Francis and alternate Commissioner Elliott to arrive, and we'll proceed without them for the moment. So Commissioner Gordon, you are on all matters this evening, okay? And you were at the last meeting, looking at the minutes. You were at the last meeting, right? Very good. So all in favor of the minutes from May 25, say aye, raise a hand. Excellent. Any? No, that's everyone. So there are no opposed and no abstentions. Minutes are adopted unanimously. Next item is 2780 Reading Road, review of preliminary subdivision open space in the AAA zone.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Jim Wendt for the record. This site is a proposed two-lot subdivision on just a hair over 5 acres. It's located on the easterly side of Reading Road, just north of its intersection with Brett Road. As the site exceeds 4 acres in size, an area of open space equals to 10% of the area of the subdivision is required to be considered as part of our subdivision regulations. The subdivision map indicates a proposed 0.527 acre open space parcel fronting on Brett Road with 101 feet of frontage on Brett Road and a depth of approximately 195 feet. On referral, the Land Acquisition Commission voted on April 21st to recommend that the TPZ require a fee in lieu of the proposed open space due to its size and lack of connectivity to any other existing open space. Similarly, the Conservation Commission voted on May 19th to recommend a fee in lieu as well. So should the commission agree and recommend a fee in lieu of the proposed open space, that fee would be $52,750, which is 10% of the appraised pre-subdivision value of the land, which would go into the town's open space fund. So this is a recommendation for the commission to make as to whether or not to recommend accepting the open space parcel as proposed by the applicant, or rather to seek a fee in lieu of that particular open space parcel. And that's all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman, unless there's any questions.
All right. And to clarify procedurally for our purposes and purposes of the public, we are here voting on a recommendation to the applicant. We're not deciding the matter. It ultimately will come back to us in a formal application for subdivision with either the open space allocation or fee, right?
That's correct. This is a preliminary recommendation, non-binding on the commission, is how the applicant should proceed with their formal application once they make it.
Right. Okay. Very good. Commissioner Braun?
A quick question. This might be for Attorney Fallon. Where is the open space?
So Commissioner Braun, as I learned from last time, we should get a motion on the table before we discuss and then start asking questions. And number two, this is not a hearing. Unfortunately, we can't ask, shouldn't ask Attorney Fallon questions on the application at this stage. Should we want to do that, then we should move this item to a public hearing. But I don't know that we need Mr. Fallon, Attorney Fallon, to answer the question as to where in the map the open space is. It is fronting on Brett Road. It is the area that's marked open space. Area equals 22,976 plus or minus, or 0.527 acres. You see that?
Looks like the open, yeah, it looks like the open space area is where the where the wetlands area is. I thought that wasn't allowed, I guess, to use wetlands areas as open space.
Well, there are some considerations that we can take into account when we talk about what space is suitable, right, for open space. But let's get a motion on the table before we get too far here. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve or deny? Commissioner Braun.
A motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss. Do you want? Is it to recommend favorably on the allocation of open space, or to recommend a fee in lieu of open space?
Would make a motion for the fee in lieu in light of both other commissions' recommendations.
Okay, that's a motion by Commissioner Braun to recommend for a fee in lieu. Do I have a second to that motion? Second by Commissioner Levy. Thanks. Okay, Commissioner Braun.
So my understanding, it might be a conservation or a wetlands rule as opposed to a zoning rule, but my understanding was that they don't allow an open space dedication to equal the wetlands area that you couldn't develop anyway. I could be wrong. That's just my memory.
I can answer that, Mr. Chairman. You're correct that our open space provision in the subdivision regulations has a provision that the commission has the discretion that on an open space parcel, that the open space parcel not contain a higher percentage of wetlands than does the overall parcel.
Okay, I need to interrupt for the moment. I just could see a message from Commissioner Corcoran that he can't hear Commissioner Braun. Commissioner Corcoran, can you hear me? I can't hear you. You're on mute.
He was nodding yes, I think.
Yes, I can hear everybody else fine.
But you can't hear Commissioner Braun.
No.
Talk louder. I have a loud voice.
It is kind of faint, I'll be honest with you. I mean, do you have you're also, I see just the top of your glasses.
Okay.
Can you
Can you hear me now if I talk a little louder?
Yeah, that's better. You're closer to what? Your microphone.
Yeah, I can just hear you now. That's
Okay.
fine.
My only point was what Mr. Went was just saying, but if you could clarify that again, Jim.
The question was whether or not the open space parcel can contain wetlands, and the answer is it's discretionary on the commission's part. You have the right to tell an applicant that an open space parcel can't have a higher percentage of wetlands on it than does the parcel as a whole. In this case, I think it's pretty clear that there's a pretty decent percentage of wetlands on that potential open space, and it's also likely going to be encumbered by a conservation easement. So I think those two factors contributed to the Conservation Commission's recommendation that a fee would be appropriate here, also in conjunction with the fact that it's such a small. Typically, if it's a parcel of that size, it wouldn't have a whole lot of value as open space on its own unless it had some connectivity to or adjacency to existing open space. So I think that in part was why the Conservation Commission recommended the fee rather than accepting the parcel as open space.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I would agree that a fee is appropriate. Basically, the lack of connectivity, the nature of the parcel, and the fact that it's just a standalone and would not be of much value as open space, separate and apart.
Okay. Thank you for that. Other commissioners? Commissioner Brayman?
I agree. I think that, there's a number of factors in the subdivision regulations, and I think 2.3.2 about not having a significantly greater, that we have the discretion to require that there be no more wetlands on the dedicated space than on the remaining subdivision is compelling, and the opinions of the two other commissions that have looked at this, I think if we accepted the recommendation, we'd simply be preserving the largely space that would already be preserved, and it would just be for the sake of further preserving that space. It doesn't have any connection to other even nearby areas that are used for conservation or recreation.
Okay, thank you. Videos. My videos for people are flashing in and out and moving around. Trying to see if any other commissioners. I see Commissioner Francis has joined us.
Yes, and if what I heard Mr. Brayman say was correct, I didn't hear the beginning of it. Did he say to accept the payment in lieu?
The motion on the so I think you joined after the item began, right? So I think it appropriate that you recuse yourself from this item, not being here from the beginning. Okay. Very good. Are there any other commissioners that have any comments or questions on the application? I generally agree with what's been said. Commissioner Brayman identified the relevant sections of the regulations, and it seems to me that this is an appropriate exercise of our discretion to recommend a fee in lieu of the dedication. Anybody else have any other comments? Okay, we're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion to recommend a fee in lieu, say aye or raise your hand. Okay, that's everyone. Any opposed? No. And I have one abstention, which is Commissioner Francis, who arrived late to the meeting. And so the motion to recommend fee in lieu carries 6-0-1. Okay. The next item on our agenda is 669 Harbor Road. To request a Pequot Yacht Club to permit a temporary construction driveway be established as a permanent entry drive in the R3 zone. And I'll recuse myself from this application. And Commissioner Brayman, if you would please step in.
Very good.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Brayman, Jim went again for the record. In December of 2018, this commission approved a coastal site plan application for the yacht club to replace their underground fuel tanks. As the site, and I did include in your packet and in the link, there's some aerial photos and some site plans that we can call up if you need them. But as the site's not very large and the existing driveway between the two existing structures is narrow, construction access for that project to replace the fuel tanks was provided by a temporary driveway that's approximately 95 feet northerly of the existing site driveway to separate the construction traffic from the club traffic. The club is now seeking to maintain that driveway as a permanent entrance only. There's not adequate sight line for that to be an exit driveway, so it would be an entrance only, and they would convert the existing narrow two-way drive to an exit only. This would facilitate one-way flow through the site to improve their operational safety. They are proposing a bluestone apron and brick piers to formalize the entrance. The Historic District Commission reviewed that proposal in their meeting of March 21st and approved it. And as part of that application, and we did include it in your packet, we did include the outreach email response that they received from the two immediate neighbors that are across the street from this driveway, both of whom indicated they had no objection. So part of what they're doing is right now, if you're familiar with the site or can see that aerial photo, there's a pretty narrow drive that runs between the building and the existing seawall, that if presently you've got to go by that twice if you're parking in the parking lot. They're trying to make it a one-way flow so that it reduces the traffic immediately adjacent to that seawall. They like the way this operates, and I think it will lead to a better flow within their site. So it's not a change, it's to their footprint. It's not an expansion of the club. It's just kind of a checkoff on whether or not you think it's appropriate to allow what was a temporary construction driveway to become permanent, which improvements were approved by the Historic District Commission. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Oops. You're on mute, Lenny. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Wendt. Would you characterize this as a application for a zoning compliance permit, or is it an extension of an existing permit that we've granted?
I think the latter. I think the motion, if there is to be one, would be that this is consistent with the site plan approval that the commission gave in 2018 and is not considered. I get the options you have as to whether or not you believe this driveway rises to the level of a special exception application. The club is a special exception use in the residential zone. This proposal does not expand its occupancy or footprint. It's just we wanted to make sure there was public notice that this was occurring. That also was accomplished through the Historic District Commission. So I guess what we'd be looking for is a motion that you believe the commission's wants to pursue a special exception in a public hearing on this matter, or whether you think this driveway does not rise to the level of a special permit and is therefore
Consistent with the existing site plan approval.
Correct.
Very good. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I would move to approve the continuation of this driveway as a permanent use one way as part of the existing special use.
Very good. Do I have a second? Commissioner Francis? I saw first. Okay, Commissioner Levy, your motion?
Yes, I go by the site regularly. I think it'll make it safer, and it's consistent with the prior and continuing use of the property.
Excellent. Commissioner Francis?
Yeah, I was down there the other day for the garden stroll, and I think it would be a very good use. It looks attractive being wider. I don't have any problem.
Commissioner Braun, I saw your hand before. Any comment? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Whatever construction they're doing seems pretty minor, and there would not be any change in drainage patterns, I'm assuming, right?
Correct. Their site work is already completed with respect to the replacement of the fuel tanks. The only additional pavement would be the bluestone apron that they're proposing, which is insignificant.
Thank you.
I guess my only question, which seems to have been answered, is what is being proposed consistent with the existing traffic pattern, and will it ameliorate, traffic and improve traffic flow? Sounds to that commissioners from their own experience have feel that this is going to be an improvement. The applicant suggested it's going to be an improvement in the flow of traffic, actually make things safer. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing no hands, shall we vote? The motion is to approve the application to extend the use of the driveway as consistent with the original 2018 site plan approval. All in favor? Please raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, seeing no.
That would be one abstention, as I think I did recusal as an abstention.
Correct. So with the chairman's recusal, the motion carries unanimously with one abstention.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Brayman. Appreciate that. Next items are new applications to recommend a public hearing. The first is 1143 Sasko Hill Road, subdivision and coastal site plan application of 1143 Sasko Hill Road LLC for 7 lots in a AAA zone.
I don't have anything to add for beyond this description, as this commission is familiar with an open space proposal that was previously discussed at hearing. Just on a technical note, you do have the authority to approve this administratively, but since there was a hearing on the open space piece, I just presume that the commission would also be interested in moving this to public hearing as well.
Yep, I appreciate that. I think that's right. Can I have a motion on that? Commissioner Levy, motion.
Move to a public hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner Levy. Second? Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Thank you. Commissioner Levy, any questions or comments?
No.
Good. Corcoran, no. Very good. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. That's everyone. Any opposed? Abstentions? No. Move to public hearing unanimously. Next is 38 Beaumont Street, zone change application of AAP Builders LLC to establish a Residence B zone on a portion of a property presently zoned design commercial district.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this site is presently a split zone. There's a house on the property now. It's behind the commercial property that was formerly known as DeVore's Bakery that now contains a dental office and some other commercial tenants. There was an application some years ago to expand the commercial boundary to allow this lot to become, or a parcel to become an expanded commercial parking lot, which was denied by the commission several years ago. The present applicant is seeking to adjust the property line in the other direction now so that the entirety of the property would be resident zone B rather than split between zone B in the design commercial district. As it is a zone change, it does require a public hearing.
Good, thank you. Can I have a motion? Commissioner Corcoran, thank you. Commissioner Braun, second. Move to public hearing. Public hearing is required on this one, so there's not a whole lot of discussion necessary. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's moved to public hearing unanimously. Next item is pre-application review. This is 81 Black Rock Turnpike. The commission will conduct a non-binding pre-application review discussion for potential development. Excuse me, potential development proposal. It's a good thing we're all remote and on video. My goodness. Very good. Attorney Fallon.
Good
It's
evening.
nice to see you again. It's been a
It is
while.
very nice to see all of you as well, and I'm glad you and your families are all well, and I look forward to us being together again in person at some time in the near future. We also appreciate very much your willingness to take some time with us tonight with a pre-application review and the benefit of your input that we are anxious to receive. In my opening comments, I think the theme is excited. We are very, very excited to present to you tonight a very vibrant vision for the development of this important parcel in the TOD, 81 Black Rock Turnpike. We are excited because this proposal is made by Continental Properties, who you'll hear more about in a minute, one of the largest and most well-respected developers of housing in the state. Howard Rappaport, the principal of Continental Properties, is with us tonight, and he's going to be addressing you in a few minutes. We're also excited, and it gets back to my greeting when we started out, because we bring this proposal to you after 15 months, during which time we have been in the grips of an historic pandemic, which has impacted every aspect of our lives, and that certainly includes real estate development. But now, as we start to emerge as a town, as a society, we're indeed excited that this development, as we propose it, can be an anchor for Fairfield's recovery and resurgence, and a showing that Fairfield is strong, remains strong, and has weathered this historic, unprecedented 15 months. I'm going to call on Howard now. He's going to talk to you about Continental Properties, our vision for the development of the site, and the unique challenges, quite honestly, that the site does, in fact, create and that we need to address. I'll then come back and offer to you for your consideration and input amendments that we would like you to approve in a subsequent application in order to make this development, which we are excited about, feasible, viable, and a reality. And we'll try to do that in consideration of your time so that we have time to gain the benefit of your input. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Howard Rappaport, principal of Continental Properties. We do have some screen shares and some slides that we will be presenting in relation to my comments and Howard's. Howard, if you would.
Thank you, John. I'll try to be brief. Good evening. My name is Howard Rappaport, and I'm a principal with Continental Properties. We have a 64-year history since 1957 of building and holding multifamily housing communities, similar to the proposed pre-application this evening. In those 64 years, we've built over 25,000 residences of all types, and we are among the largest developers in Connecticut with over 1,250 dwelling units in operation, including completed communities in Trumbull, Shelton, Milford, and Glastonbury. In every municipality in which we build, our communities literally are the gem of the town. They're first-rate luxury communities. We will meticulously design this proposed community to be a development of which Fairfield and its stakeholders can be proud. So what do I mean? I guess the question is by a first-rate community. People who live in this area have certain expectations for quality housing, and they include a high level of architecture, a level of fit and finishes in the interiors that is truly luxurious, a level of landscaping and exterior amenities that is resort quality, and a highly amenitized level of interior amenities to truly provide our residents with a sense of place. And what we're showing on the screen right now is examples of actual built communities in nearby towns in Connecticut. And this is the type of quality that we would propose to build at 81 Black Rock Turnpike. The interior spaces, literally the common spaces, have the feel of an upscale boutique hotel. The residences in the common areas have art, millwork, upscale finishes, and the interior finishes are high quality, gourmet kitchens, stainless steel appliances, large islands. I think what I'd like to move to now, and we'll start with the slides, is our vision for 81 Black Rock Turnpike, which we will show here. And I'll give you a few minutes of what that vision is. If we can move to the conceptual slide, which is the next slide, please. We are proposing a 5-story building with extensive interior and exterior amenities. The architecture is intended to be first class and modern. The conceptual plan that you are looking at shows the site organized with a parking structure at the rear next to the Metro North lines, a 5-story building with courtyards, and up front on Ash Creek Boulevard, a restaurant, outdoor amenity space fronting on Ash Creek. Our vision for this site is to activate the street life on Ash Creek with a farm-to-table restaurant, public art, an outdoor public space. If we can move to the next slide, please, which is a blow-up of the amenity space here, which you can see the restaurant, the public art to the right of that, outdoor tables, outdoor seating areas, a fire pit, and a large cinema wall. And if we could go to the next slide, please. A rendering from the other direction looking east. So we would activate this street life on Ash Creek, as I said, with a farm-to-table restaurant, public art, outdoor public space, fire pit, and cinema, to create a highly dynamic, multifunction outdoor space and to animate the street life on Ash Creek. We should take a moment to talk about the site characteristics here. We need to be cognizant of the fact that this is an irregularly shaped parcel that is hemmed in on 3 sides by a DOT parking lot, Ash Creek Boulevard, and the Metro North train tracks. The site is on the south side of the train tracks, which makes it a bit remote and unlikely for walkable, boutique-style downtown retail. And the site is further challenged by very poor soil conditions, as well as quite significant environmental conditions requiring remediation. To be clear, our commitment to the site is very real, but we need to be realistic about what the inherent challenges are of the site. Before I give it back to John, I just wanted to talk very generally about zoning. As John mentioned, as with so much of the rest of the world, the commercial real estate market has changed dramatically since March 2020. When the current regulations were adopted and the TOD study recommendations were completed, they were no doubt realistic and provided guidelines for a responsible course of development. Unfortunately, the impact of the pandemic on today's realities of commercial real estate development renders the regulations, with one interpretation of them, such that feasible and financeable high-quality mixed-use development on the site would not be possible. Again, under one interpretation of the regulations. And the zoning challenges are further exacerbated by the site challenges that I just mentioned. Again, to be clear, we are committed to the site. We recognize it's an important gateway to the metro area. We believe that working with the commission regarding amendments and interpretation of the regulations, that we can build an outstanding mixed-use development that will have an extremely positive impact on the metro area and both be feasible in its financing and its ultimate construction. And we welcome the opportunity and we appreciate your time. And John, I'll hand it back to you so you can talk more specifically about the zoning, please.
Can everybody hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, you can hear you. We can hear you, John.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And thank you, Howard. I've posted a slide. We've posted a slide that basically summarizes the aspects of amendment that we are asking for your consideration on. Now, again, we emphasize this is a pre-app, and nothing you do or say here prejudges any ultimate decisions you make on formal applications, including applications to amend the regulations. But the pre-app is beneficial because we've worked on this development for over a year. And we've looked at all the factors that Howard just emphasized. Not the least are the unique challenges of the site and the unique challenges of the world that commercial real estate faces in March and April and May and June, July of 2021. So these are the things that we'd ask your consideration of, and I want to briefly review them, and then we want to leave a lot of time for your input. First of all, we would contemplate an amendment that would increase the density allowance to 75 bedrooms per acre. That is a direct recommendation of your TOD study. You'll find it at page 29 and 30A. I'll elaborate some more on that in a moment. We're also asking you, or would like to ask you, to amend the regulations so that you would not include within the FAR calculation areas of the building that are used for mechanical equipment, heating, etc. That is not part of the TOD study directly, but it is not inconsistent with provisions of your current zoning regulations as they relate to section 31.2.15. Thirdly, we contemplate an amendment whereby the amenity and entry space in such a mixed-use development in the TOD as this would be treated as retail. And again, that is a specific recommendation from your TOD study at page 32. If you could go to the next slide, please, as I continue the other 3 items of discussion. This is what you're looking at now, and as you'll see, it provides, not only addresses the reasonableness or what we perceive to be the underpinnings of the first 3 requests, but it does talk also about 4 very fundamental considerations that we need, hopefully, your agreement on if we're to bring this development into fruition in the post-pandemic environment that we're in now. The first one is that we are requesting that below market rate units be excluded from the FAR calculation. I would note that your TOD study does in fact make a reference, I would go so far as to say a recommendation that you consider increasing the minimum below market rate development in this type of a mixed use development from 10% to 12%. Continental Development endorses that. We'd be happy and would intend, if that was the commission's direction that we would get from staff, to include in our amendment package a provision that would in fact increase the affordable component in such a mixed use development to 12%. However, as we point out in the what I call footnote there, in doing that in the context of mixed use, a developer should not be, if you will, penalized for the inclusion or the increasing of below market rate units. To make this development work, one of the factors that is critical is your willingness to consider that type of an amendment that would exclude below market rate units from the FAR calculation. And as the notes that are posted now show you, that is not a concept that is unique. It exists in other jurisdictions, and it exists in Stanford right now as a way to incentivize and provide proper relief to developers in the context of a mixed-use development with a serious commitment to affordable units. The next aspect of our request is number 5, and that is an amendment that we would craft and offer for your consideration to allow structured retail parking to be included in the retail FAR for purposes of our overall calculation. This, again, is not, in my mind, unreasonable. Hope you would agree. At the outset of the implementation of the TOD regulations, the earliest iteration being the trademark case, in that particular instance, the entire area of parking was, in fact, included in that FAR calculation as retail. We are not asking you to go back and do that. We realize that since that original application, it has been determined that it is appropriate that your interpretation of that regulation be changed. But as I point out, we point out in the item number 5, we would think that it is not unreasonable to allow inclusion of within the FAR as retail, not only the area, for example, the restaurant pad that we propose, but also those areas of structured parking, only structured parking, that I think in this case, number 70 spaces. That again would help us make the project viable. And then lastly, and this is probably your biggest consideration and where we hope we can all look back at where the world was in November of 2019 and certainly March in 2020, and the long way that we have come and the long way that we still have to go. And that is the whole question of allocation with regard to percentage. Currently, as you know, the FAR percentage allocation is 70%, 30%, 70% residential, 30% retail. There is obviously discussion and consideration, as the slide indicates that is up there now, in the TOD study that was done in November of 2019, that the commission consider modifying that based upon the realities that then existed to 80-20. We're respectfully suggesting to you, after looking at this so carefully for a year and wanting to make this go forward in the manner that Howard just shared with us, but there is not a way, and Howard can probably speak to it more reasonably and with more certainty than I, but there is certainly just not a way in this environment that we can achieve this development at a basis of an 80-20 split, because it still leaves you with a significant amount of what amounts to, speculative retail at a time when those retail realities just don't warrant that. So what we're asking you lastly, and we would be asking you to consider, and we welcome your input tonight, is an amendment that would allow that allocation, at least in the context of this TOD, to be 85% to 15%. As I say, I'm not going to read all this to you, but there are various references in the TOD study that we cite on this particular graphic, page 5, page 15, page 26, particularly, where there's a recognition, even in 2019, that there is weakness or certainly uncertainty in the high-end office market. And now we're looking at a situation where the report could not even have taken into consideration what transpired post-October 2019 and what we're trying to dig our way out of now. And we think with all of that in context, our proposal to make it 85-15% rather than 80-20, which is what the study indicated, is not unreasonable in light of the events that have occurred over the last 15 months. So those are the 6 aspects of amendment that we would want to bring to you for your formal consideration, along with an application. And we welcome, any comments that you would have. As Howard says, and we're all here available for any questions you might have. We want to work collaboratively with the commission and the staff to make this happen. But the realities are such that these amendments are things that we would need to have addressed. And we hope you would not find any of them to be outlandish, especially in light of the content of the TOT study and the occurrences of the last 15 months. So we welcome your input. Be pleased to answer any question, and very much, again, appreciate your time with regard to this pre-application.
Sure. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. So maybe starting from the end, from the last going forward, you suggested that the 80-20 split is not feasible. You mentioned speculative retail, but that 85-15, is appropriate. But can you just talk about what that means in reality? What is the difference between 85% and 15% versus 70-30 or even 80-20 in terms of, number of units, square footage of retail or restaurant, commercial. Let's not stop calling it retail. Commercial space. Okay.
Correct.
Commercial space. And we all recognize that office space, there was a lot of uncertainty in mid 2020 that, office space is going to go down. But frankly, now we've seen office space in suburban environments like Fairfield actually rebound substantially as businesses were doing these satellite offices and such. And quite honestly, a lot of folks are being told to go back to work now. We'll see how the summer shakes out and so forth. But it's commercial space, and we are seeing a rebound, substantial rebound in commercial markets today. Retail is booming. So what does the difference mean? 70-30 to 80-20 to 85-15 as in terms of in practice.
I think I'd like Howard to answer that because he's the man with the experience and the man in the trenches. So Howard, could you follow up on that? Are you there, Howard?
You're on mute still, Howard.
I think possibly, well, Howard, let me know when you can chime in.
Okay, I'm here, Patrick,
You're there
Howard,
now?
if you can hear me now.
we
Yeah.
can, Howard. Yes.
Yeah, no, I welcome the opportunity to give you some context.
Great.
And so assuming just for a moment, the 75 bedrooms per acre in the study are adopted, we'll take it under 3 scenarios that you're asking about. Under a 70-30 ratio, that would result in approximately 143 square feet of commercial of some use in order to make the math work for the numerator and the denominator. Again, that's 70-30, and that's approximately 107,143 square feet. Under an 80-20 scenario, again, assuming 75 bedrooms per acre, under one interpretation, it would require us to build approximately 62,500 square feet. If we go to 85-15, and this is not including any of the modifications, the 6 modifications that other than the 75 bedrooms per acre that John went through. So the other 5 modifications.
And that's a fair point. There are variables in play, right? I understand.
That would be, again, approximately 44,118 square feet. What we are showing, Chairman Wagner, on our conceptual site plan is a commercial space of 4,200 square feet plus approximately 24,000 square feet of exterior amenity space. And what John was referencing is that we can meet the 85 and 85-15 ratio with the modifications he articulated to the zoning. And to be clear, in our analysis of what is financeable today, building without a tenant, a 44,000 to 107,000 square foot commercial use is not financeable. And I'm a developer, and we want to build, so we know we want to turn around and not take approvals on something that we can't build. But it's a rare developer who tells you, I don't have a tenant for it. I can't build it on spec. So that's, I hope, some context.
Sure. So you mentioned and also in your presentation, and that was the question I was going to ask as a follow-up, but you just mentioned it. So let's talk about it. You said under the 80-20 split, it's about 62,500 square feet under one interpretation of the regulations. What are the competing interpretations of the regulations that you're referring to?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's on the table here, but a competing interpretation of the regulation is to go back, which does not seem to be an objective of the Planning and Zoning Commission, to the interpretation that trademark was built under. Under that interpretation, if we were to include the structured parking garage in the commercial calculation of the FAR, then we would not need to build any additional commercial space. We fully recognize that there needs to be a vibrant mixed-use space along Ash Creek. So we're not, even if that was the interpretation, we still need to build something here to animate and activate the street life here. So that's the one interpretation I'm talking about.
I got it. Before you keep going, who's ever screen sharing, can we stop screen sharing so the videos are bigger and I can see people?
Yeah. Sure. One second here.
This is the benefit of Zoom and the downfall of Zoom.
All good?
Yeah,
All good.
thank you. Got it. Good. So please continue, Mr. Rappaport.
So that was the interpretation that I was referring to. But as you point out, there are variables to how one reaches the calculations, and these are approximate because in some cases the math is a little bit circular with what you put into the numerator, what you take out of the denominator.
Sure. No, okay. I think I understand the merits of what is being proposed and the rationale. Before I keep going, other commissioners on this issue? Okay, I see 3. Commissioner Braun, Brayman, Levy. So let's go in that order, and then I'll call on others. Commissioner Braun?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
The 44,000 square feet of commercial that you're proposing, does that include the 4,000 for the restaurant? And whether it does or doesn't, what are the other commercial items that you would have, and how would they be situated in the development?
In answer to your question, the 4,200 would be inclusive of the 44,000. That would leave us with a little bit around approximately 40,000 square feet of something that we would need to build. So it would be 44,118 approximately, less 4,200.
And the non-restaurant, would that be on the first floor of the residential buildings? Because the restaurant's completely separate, right?
Yeah, the restaurant's completely separate. If John or Patrick, if you want to just pull up the 5 requests, so I could go back to
The 6 requests, yeah.
6 requests. Pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
In answer to your question, and I just want to give you. Okay, so in the 2019 study, it contemplated that the amenity and entry space within the residential building, meaning our leasing center, our club room, our interior cinema room, our fitness centers, that whole programmatic area would be deducted or not part of the FAR calculation, and counted toward the commercial, and that is approximately 10,000 square feet, Commissioner Braun. Other than that, there's no other commercial, qua commercial that is proposed here.
So 10,000, I'll help this. So 10,000 square feet of amenities in the residential building for the use of the residents of the building.
That's correct.
Plus the 4,000 square foot restaurant, plus what I understand to be about 24,000 of exterior amenity space, which is publicly accessible, ancillary to the restaurant.
That's correct.
Right. So when you add those up, and you get 24, 28, 38, let's call it roughly about 40,000 square feet of space that would be sought to be included in the commercial, in the square footage of the 15%.
Basically, there would be no retail or office space at all. It would all just be part of the residential project, counted as retail.
No, there would still be the 4,200 square feet restaurant space.
Just the restaurant.
And the amenity space, which if you look at the rendering that has been up for most of the day, is one of the more exciting components of this. The rendering, Patrick, if you would, not the site plan. Yeah, because so that's right. I think Chairman Wagner correctly stated it with the analysis that we've provided in answering the question relative to the original question that the chairman asked about what is 70-30, what is 80-20, what is 85-15, you have those numbers. And of course, the 85-15 number, speaking rawly, is 44,118. But to get this project into a feasibility and a financeability mode, you have to take these 6 elements of amendment that we would seek to make in a formal application to you, because that will lead us with a viable project, a financeable project. And I think the chair correctly summarized what you'd have in terms of the calculation.
And I can provide further context if you want on the other elements and what the math is, if that helps you. But we can answer other questions first, however you wish to proceed.
Either way, this is unscripted. This is fluid. If you have some further remarks to make to place it in context about what the different scenarios mean as a practical matter, I think that's always helpful. I do have a couple of other commissioners in the queue here. I saw Commissioner Levy and Commissioner Brayman's hands. I think Brayman was next. So let's just go to him first, and I'll make a note of coming back to the scenarios. Commissioner Brayman.
Thank you. My question doesn't have to do with the mix of retail and residential, but I had a question about the affordable percentage, because you mentioned that you'd be open to 12% affordable, and you suggested that, you know, one of your text changes is that below market rate units not count toward FAR. I guess 2 questions. One is, do you have a site, you happen to have a site to the Stanford zoning regs that we could take a look at, where they exclude below market from FAR? And second, if we were to exclude below market rate units from FAR, would you consider, say, 15% affordable instead of 12%?
To answer the first question, if you look on the fact sheet, the second page, which I'm sure Mr. Wendt can provide you copies of all of these, but we directly do reference the Stanford zoning regulations, and we explicitly reference those by way of the pages and the sections. So you'll see that there. No, the next slide. That's right. Yeah. If you look there, Commissioner Brayman, on footnote number 4, we do address directly the reference to the Stanford regulations. On the second question of 15%, I mean, I think the honest answer to that is this is a very exciting but delicate project. If we could make 15% work, and if the commission were amenable to the exclusion of the below rate market units from FAR, and we crunch those numbers, if that's the direction we got from you, we would see if it were feasible. But I don't think, unless Howard disagrees, that we can necessarily commit that tonight, but we certainly could look at it.
John, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, we've been, and respectfully, we've been stretching to take it from the 10% in the minimum. I recognize it's a minimum in the TOD zoning up to the 12%. Given the site remediation and the soils, I think it's going to be challenging to get to 15%. But I understand the question and respect the question.
Okay. Follow up, Commissioner Brayman? Good. Okay. Next was Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, looking at the site plan, what is to the east? And that's it's referred to as BlackRock Realty. There's a property to the east of the development.
Yep. Did you say what is it?
What is it, or what's there now?
Oh, that's Planet Fitness. It's a Planet Fitness.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering what impact I'd have on commercial development along that side. So,
well, one of the things that we, Commissioner Levy, obviously one of the things, this is a very important, but it is a preliminary step with regard to getting the feedback of the commission so that we can make some ultimate judgments with regard to feasibility. We hope that the input we receive will be encouraging enough that we could take this to the next level. And that next level would not only include formal applications, but obviously we would want our neighbors to be aware of what we're proposing. We want to be considerate of their input as well. But we felt the first stop along the road was to visit with the commission, as we're doing tonight. But we certainly, we would hope and expect that the surrounding property owners would find this kind of investment to have a materially beneficial impact relative to their properties. But we certainly will not ignore their input prior to coming back to you with a formal application.
Thank you. Any follow-up on that? Any other commissioners? Commissioner Braun?
Just my 2 cents. I know there's a boatload of laws being changed in Hartford right now. And there's one sitting on the governor's desk that hasn't been signed yet. But aside from that, when we add this amount of density, I know it's the right place. It looks like a beautiful project. It kills our ratio. I would really like to see as high as possible for affordable housing units. What Commissioner Brahman mentioned of 15% is something that I would be looking for to get this amount of density down there. That's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a difficult scenario to better our analysis under the affordable housing statute when we are creating essentially the treading water level of new in terms of new development. You follow me? Yeah. So always a good thing. Other comments, questions in this regard? Okay, I would be really interested to understand some of the other scenarios that you were talking about, that you kind of reviewed in your work to understand, whether there are some alternatives to the way that we're calculating these variables.
I don't think that's answered. John, do you want to go forward?
No, Howard, I was gonna defer to you on that.
I don't think you're asking about what the other mathematical calculations are, unless you want me to give that to you now. We've looked at, just the different orientations to the property. We've moved the building closer to the train tracks, farther from the train tracks. We've moved around the parking. We're dealing with soil conditions that will require us to have what are called geopiers, PCBs in the soil. So we have a lot of variables and we have unsuitable soils as well. There's an existing slab. So we've looked at a number of different programs, but they're all primarily residential because we are residential builders.
The only thing I would add to that is this what we're bringing before you tonight is really after a very long time of looking at this site and trying to come up with a way that we can achieve something that, as Howard has said before, is feasible and financeable. And so there aren't really alternative scenarios. I don't believe, having lived with this analysis over the last year, that based upon what, and it gets back to my, I guess, recurrent theme, based upon what has happened and how the world has changed in the last 15 months. And I appreciate the chair's comments about certain aspects of hopefulness in terms of the retail and commercial market. But the bottom line is, in terms of what's financeable, what's doable now, we've come up with, we think, an approach that can get this done and get this done now and get a project approved and financed and moving forward before the end of this year or in early 2022. And there really is no other scenario as a realistic matter that's going to get us to that point. And we've tried to balance our needs with a lot of what the TOD study already previsioned, and then at the end of the day, come up with some approaches that allow us to at least get within hailing distance of that 80-20 and an 85-15 split with these other contributions.
Yeah, I mean, so at the end of the day, I think one could, and this is very cynical, so don't take this the wrong way, but one could walk away from this and say, wow, okay, it's 4,000 square foot of restaurant space, and that's a far cry from even the 15% of 44,000. I think that there is a relatively good argument to make for the amenity space that's publicly accessible and available adjacent to the restaurant that'll be serviced by the restaurant. I presume you're going to sell tickets to see the movie, and they're going to sit around the fire pit and they're going to order from the restaurant and be served drinks and so forth, right? It's not just going to be a public park. So, it seems to me that is reasonable to be calculated in a commercial area, right? And in part because it's publicly accessible and it's for the wider community, or as you say, engaging the streetscape and encouraging other folks to visit and so forth, and not just dedicated for the use of the residents. I have a more difficult time with the interior amenity space that is allocated exclusively for the use of the residents of the building as being counted towards the commercial split.
Yeah.
And simply because the whole purpose of the commercial split, not the whole purpose, but a major purpose of
Right.
this is to generate streetscape interest, visit, foot traffic, and not just to as the coffee shop for the
Right.
for the folks who live there.
What I would say to that, and I know I don't want to start reading from the TOD, but hopefully and I understand your point, Commissioner, but if you do look at the TOD study at page 32, that is a quote unquote ask, I guess, that we're making that is consistent with the TOD. Now you're not bound by the TOD study, and we all know that, but I think that it helps if the argument here, if the goal here, certainly is our goal, is to get this project over the finish line, then, when you really boil it down, okay, you got the 75 beds per acre. That's part of the TOD study. You've got the amenity and entry level space treated as retail. That's a recommendation of the TOD study. You want to deduct the mechanicals in the building from the FAR calculation. That's not inconsistent with provisions of your regulations, although not directly on point. We've discussed the affordable component. We hear what you're saying. You heard what we're saying. But if whatever level of affordable percentage is going to be the minimum here, it doesn't seem unreasonable, as they have done in Stanford, to not have that included in the FAR. We respect your interpretation as it's evolved on the matter of structured parking, but we asked, can that be revisited, at least in the context of those 70 spaces that would be structured and would be directly related to the retail? And then you get to the 85-15. So I understand there's a lot going on here, but I don't think any of it is a far reach from where the TOD study left us before we all started wearing masks, and where we find ourselves now. And there, I think, are some other benefits involved here in terms of exclusion of the affordable units will enhance affordable units, which somewhat addresses Commissioner Braun's comment, I think, about the remaining a balance and trying to gain in terms of our affordability in the community. So I don't know. I understand what you're saying on the amenity space, but I think the TOD study did a pretty good rationale of why you might want to consider that and why we'd like to bring it back to you for formal consideration.
I wonder if I can add one thing.
Mhm.
I'm Crystal Sard, the planner of it, and I studied the site for a long period of time. And I've also worked a lot around the country in different areas that have, like an area in Loudoun County requires 70-30 mix as an example. But they're trying to do it within the context of the planning area. And the reality is that sometimes sites that are infill, which in their definition would meet it because it's under 5 acres. It's also fringe because it's on an edge. That your goal is trying to meet the 80-20 or even the 70-30, but it's over the entire parcel. If you studied the TOD book that you did, you had 4 different scenarios that you did. And each one of those scenarios recognized that probably a block would be an office or a block would be residential, and ultimately it was going to achieve the ultimate goal and trying to mix between the entire site, which is, I think, what you're doing. I'd like to correct one thing, I think, Chairman Wagner, that you said. We're not asking for, because there's no way in your current code to look at public park, outdoor space, outdoor eating. So we didn't calculate that into any number, even though I put it as a notation as just a footnote. If we got that, it obviously outdoor eating, that number would help public use, because we understand that the goal of the intent goal is to make sure that you have an activated street and have people on the street doing things and encouraging street movement, whether that's by outdoor eating, outdoor theater, or physical building, or even having an activation of the inner street that you can see through park, that you have activation going on. That was the intent of what you're trying to do, but you're also trying to get to the 80-20 mix. But that's going to be easier done as a global to get it done than it is, because when you start to take a look at this plan, you asked about different plans we looked at, we had a constant fight between, because we're capped by 5 stories, we're having a constant fight between trying to get footprint area to achieve the programming things. And when we got to the front parcel on where we currently show the restaurant, we took a look at potential office as an example. And it's just not a very good floor plate, because you're fighting between the two, because your ground space isn't correct. It's not large enough to get a sufficient block.
Yeah, and I very well said. I appreciate everything that you just said. And you made decisions on that parcel on Ash Creek to, but presumably you studied the size of the restaurant vis-a-vis the art space and the outdoor dining space and the movie theater space and so forth, because you could get more square footage on that Ash Creek frontage if in a building, right, in a like a more typical commercial space if you'd wanted to, but obviously decisions were made to utilize aspects of that parcel in these alternative means.
I can speak from Howard to the extent that, we're trying to do a restaurant pad that we believe that works. Now, if we had a restaurant pad of 5,000, we'd be probably more than happy to put 5,000 if it worked. But at the point of commitment from Howard, he's committing what he thinks is happening. But, it's like any real estate deal. If, a footprint of something showed up that worked and is workable for everyone, I'm sure that we would come in with an update and maybe increase the number if that's what's allowable. At the same time, I want you to recognize that all that outdoor space, which is 24,000 space in public park and activity center, we're not trying to count that in terms of the percentage numbers, which we think is a part of the activation. That's your intent.
But Chris, I would point out that it is a public area and that there are reasonable interpretations where that could be counted. And if it was the pleasure of the commission to do so, as in terms of how we reach our collective goal here, that we're not opposed to that.
Right.
So,
I don't want to take too much more of the commission's time with regard to that. I mean, I appreciate the comments, and I think you have been very generous with your time. I mean, our goal is to at least feel that we have something here as work product after a year of study that is worthy of your further consideration and that you're open-minded to
Yeah.
consider favorably.
Yeah.
Because,
Appreciate that.
yep, and that's really our goal tonight. And if there is something here that just would not, in the commission's judgment, be appropriate in accordance with the purpose of the TOD and the study, we'd need to know that. But we hope that's not the case, because as I said, without being redundant, a lot of what we've done here is either directly related to the TOD study or at least not inconsistent with its goals and objectives.
No, all makes sense. So let's do this. What you had some additional materials that you screen shared
Yes.
tonight. So if you would please send that along to Mr. Wendt so he can distribute that to the commission. Some of those photos and things were interesting to take another look at, and give us a little bit of time to send any more feedback back to the office, back through the office to you, and vice versa, and we can sort of take it from there. But I think this has been very productive. Appreciate everyone's time, and we should move on to Commissioner Francis. As I'm saying, we should move on to the public hearing. Yes, Commissioner Francis.
I think it's a very attractive project, and I like the outdoor space a lot. I appreciate it's a difficult site, but there certainly is a tremendous difference between the 107,000 that we would like and 44,000. So I don't know how you fix that. I wondered, are the apartments proposed to be a minimum of 750 square feet? I didn't know what 75 units per acre worked out to.
It's 75 bedrooms per acre. So 75 bedrooms per acre is the count. As far as the square footage of the units, I can't give you that offhand. And the only other comment, and this is just Commissioner Francis, in an ideal world, when this first.
Sorry, John, you're breaking up. I don't know. Can anyone else?
70-30 probably made a good deal of sense. 80-20 maybe made sense in October of 2019, but we're just trying to address the realities that currently exist, and hopefully that's something we can do.
As a luxury development, I would imagine the apartments are at least 750 square feet.
Yeah, this is Howard Rappaport speaking.
Hello.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So
okay.
The units are a mix primarily of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom dwelling units. We have some studios which are less than 750, but that's Chris Lassard can correct me. Chris, how many studios are we programming right now?
We have 20 studios. The average on the net size on the unit size, I believe, is 827 square feet, to answer your question, from an average size.
Okay, thank you. And the movie screen seems to be viewed from the street. Could that be turned? Isn't that distracting to traffic going by?
We've done on projects where it's kind of working towards the village green, and it's not like a high traffic area, because partially it's just people coming out of the eventually it's people coming out of the train station area. Your overall plan that you worked on, that you were trying to get to, basically looked at on page 16 through 23. You had 4 scenarios that you attempted to figure out different ways to connect things together. You got to recognize that this is on an edge. It's not really in the center of this zone. So you are on an edge to begin with.
But we understand your concerns from a traffic movement standpoint.
I mean, this is conceptual at this point, and I think, if you were to look at the rendering right now, it's actually kind of tilted towards the interior as opposed to tilted towards the street. But that's something that would, I think, get tweaked.
And then lastly, I would say the post-pandemic era isn't going to last forever. I think in a year or two, you'll find commercial is back and people are definitely going back to the offices. So I don't think we should be overwhelmed by the scenario right now, the past few months.
I would hope that you'd look at this project for what it is and consider what it could do for this area of Fairfield right
It's
now,
very attractive.
rather than banking on changes that we all would like to see come, but at this point in time are uncertain.
Right. Understood, and all very much appreciated.
And we will, Mr. Chairman, send you, we'll have Mr. Wendt receive these, all of these graphics that we've reviewed tonight. Patrick, if you could send those to Jim Wendt, that would be great.
Okay. Excellent.
I will
Thank
take
you.
care of that.
Thank you, everyone.
We thank you very much for your time. We look forward to
All right.
seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda is our public hearing. 5545 Park Avenue, zoning compliance application of Primrose Development LLC for 120 unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes in an R3 zone. Attorney Rizzio, the mic is yours.
Chairman, members of the commission, Raymond Rizzio, I'm really happy to be before you tonight with regard to the application at 5545 Park Avenue for a certificate of zoning compliance pursuant to the statutory 8-30G for an affordable housing development. This property is a 2.4 acre parcel. I'm going to have Chris, if you don't mind, have Chris Russo bring up some plans and some overhead. We have all of our experts here. We'll take you through our plans. So basically, if you probably all are very familiar with this property. It's 5545 Park Avenue. It's 2.4 acre parcel that sits right on Park Avenue with about 200 feet of frontage. Property, as we're coming right now to start share our content, as you can see the overhead, it's bounded by the Merritt Parkway. To the north, as you can see, we're about 100, I think over 150 feet from the pavement. But there's a large, open space area, wooded area shielding the site or buffering the site from the Merritt Parkway. We are directly across the street to the east from basically Park Avenue Medical Center. It is a couple of reasons why this project makes so much sense in this location. Being one of the largest employers in Trumbull, it is over 200,000 square feet of dedicated medical space, which is the Smilo Cancer Medical Center, Yale Hospital, and Bridgeport Hospital are the primary tenants of the entire facility. It's a state-of-the-art facility, and probably I think one of the largest employers in Trumbull. Right there. There's next to that, directly south of that, across the street, is a church and a 550 car parking garage that are both located in Bridgeport. This property is really at the crossroads. It basically is the last property in Fairfield on this side, up on the south side of the Merritt Parkway. And there are no residents between Jefferson Street. You have basically if you came up from Jefferson Street, you would see the Sacred Heart Business School, followed Jack Rich Business School, followed by a soccer field, and we also abut to the south the soccer fields and baseball fields of Notre Dame High School, which are also shared with Sacred Heart University. And then to the west, there's one property that backs up off a side street that is accessed from Jefferson Street. It's a long cul-de-sac, and there is a large buffered area between where the building is proposed. So this building really is the perfect location, sits on an island, yet it's basically near the two largest employers. One, Sacred Heart University, may be one of the largest employers in Fairfield, and Yale Bridgeport Hospital directly across the street in Trumbull. So we feel this is something that will attract. The affordable housing is a perfect site here because it's a great mixed income project. where it services the needs that are required pursuant to your affordable housing findings, where we're looking to get people who work in the community to be able to live in the community. So we can see this by teachers, nurses, doctors, residents, graduate students. We feel this is an excellent location for this type of project. If we can take it to the current survey, Chris, property, as you can see, is 2.4 acres. There was a single family house there. There is a driveway that has been accessed off Park Avenue. One of the things that's important to note is that the plan, which we'll show you when we do the site plan development, has access at a light on Park Avenue. So we don't have any of these site distance issues. Mike Galante will take you through it, but we're about 150 feet from the entrance to the Merritt Parkway, and the light will be directly across the street from the entrance to the medical facility, which I said contains a 550 car parking garage. What's nice about this is the traffic will be controlled. There'll be no threat with regard to site distances as far as cars operating at an excessive rate, because cars will be forced to stop in front of are currently forced to stop in front of our entryway in either direction. So this will be directly controlled by light. Chris, if you can take me to the site plan. We are planning to build 120 units with 191 parking spaces. The building will have 6 floors of residential living, and there'll be an underground parking garage, which will house a good number of the spots. There will also be 5 handicap parking spaces. As you can see from the site plan, we will be going to the Department of Transportation to modify the light so that the entrance and exit to the light entrance and exit to the property will be directly controlled by the light. The building will sit back 103 feet from Park Avenue, but it's actually more than 103 feet from Park Avenue. As you can see, the pavement is probably almost 50 feet to get to the property line. Our side yard on the Merritt Parkway is going to be about 60 feet. And 33 feet to the property that's owned by the Bridgeport Diocese that's used for the fields. One of the things that we felt was important for safety, we met with the fire marshal early on. One of the things that he wanted in the project was that there would be complete access for emergency vehicles directly around the building. Mike Bertullo will get into this, and so Mike Galante. The only comment that the fire marshal had with regard to our circulation was that there's an island that's proposed in the middle there to separate the entrance from the exit. And what he would like to see there is, we originally had a mountable curb. What he'd like to see is what we're planning to do is just use traffic markings to denote that island so that the fire trucks could come in, enter and exit the property without having to climb any curb. And we believe that is sufficient to take care of his concerns.
Okay, so that's one modification that you're now saying on the site plan. That island is going to be flat pavement markings only.
Correct, Chairman. And Mike Bertullo will get into that. I just thought I would mention it as I'm taking you through the site plan.
Very good.
The property, we basically have 1.6 parking spaces per unit. There'll be 62 bedrooms and 61 bedrooms. What's nice about this, the units will average probably between 850 and 1,250 square feet. Some of the units will have dens, which we found, and looking at current apartment buildings that are being leased that I'm very familiar with, that these dens have become very much usable. I know some people think, oh, that's just another bedroom. It's not. With the significant number of people working from home, the den has become a very, very valuable tool for people who work at home. If you're trying to maintain a professional environment and work at home, not working at your kitchen table, not working at the island, at your kitchen or in your bedroom, having a den, basically a home office, is a huge amenity that we will have within a number of the units. We basically have 1.6 parking spaces per unit, and we have over 1 parking space per bedroom for the entire building, consistent with which is in excess of the parking that has previously been approved from other affordable housing projects in town where, for example, at 528 parking at Black Rock Turnpike, there were 23 units approved and 26 parking spaces. That was 1.13 per unit. 78 Uncle Place had 26 units and 27 parking spaces. 4185 Black Rock Turnpike, which was recently approved, had 94 units and 139 spaces at 1.47 spaces per unit. They had 162 bedrooms and they had 139 spaces. So this proposal exceeds any of the parking requirements of any previously approved affordable housing project in town. So our setbacks to the rear are 117 feet. As I explained to you, from the Merritt Parkway, the building will be 60 feet from the property line, but about 150 feet from the pavement, which I feel that's important. We'll be connecting, we work very closely through the development of this parcel with the Wetlands Commission, which we have approval for this, for all the limits of disturbances and the actual footprint of the building. And in working with the Wetlands Department, there was not sewers accessible in Fairfield to this site. Working with the Wetlands Department, we would have had to cut some undisturbed areas as we obtained what's that? Yeah, we obtained an easement from the Bridgeport Diocese to basically originally bring our sewers into the Fairfield system, but the Jefferson Street pump station, was lacking. Wetlands did really not say, we don't have any wetlands on our property. The wetlands is actually on the state property. They did not really want to see us clear cutting the land in back of us to bring the sewer all the way out to Weeping Willow, where there actually was a connection. So they asked us to please check with the city of Bridgeport and see if we could get approval to connect to their system, which I believe some of Sacred Heart is also goes into their system. So we met with the Bridgeport WPCA. We have written approval to connect this project to the municipal system for the city of Bridgeport. So there'll be no taxing or negative effect on the sewage system of the town of Fairfield. All the sewage will go directly to right into the city of Bridgeport system. There'll be no detrimental effect on any of the capacity or contribution to any of the capacity that currently goes into the Jefferson Street pump station. So that's worked out. We also, as I said, we worked closely with the fire marshal. The building will be fully sprinkled in a full sprinkler system. And additionally, we propose, and I wasn't sure if it was in the plan, I'll have Mike Bertullo say this, but we would agree to a condition of approval to connect our sidewalk to the current existing sidewalk down on Jefferson Street, where in front of the Sacred Heart, or in front of the fields, so that basically people will be able to walk down to Jefferson Street and Park Avenue, where there is a bus stop down there, or to walk to the Sacred Heart campus. As you know, people will be able to cross the light, and if they're working at the medical center, they will be able to work there. Commissioner Francis, it was interesting that you noted that people will be going back to their offices. We also think this will be an excellent site for people who commute to Stamford, commute to Norwalk, and we think there's very strong demand that will basically, by being close to the Merritt, being an island unto itself, the ability to get in and out, in and on the Merritt within 150 feet if you're traveling northbound. You just have to go into the brand new, within the last 7 years, they designed the roundabout on the southbound entrance so that traffic is completely controlled there. As I said, most importantly, traffic from our site will be controlled by a light. The property is also going to be serviced by Bridgeport Hydraulic Aquarion, and so we will have public water, public sewers, and there'll be no taxing of the environment on this property. Once again, as I spoke, we have no wetlands on the site. We don't propose to fill any wetlands. The drainage that we have submitted and the drainage reports that have been submitted have all been reviewed by the town engineers, I assume, and we have not heard any negative comments as to what is currently proposed. What I'd like to do now is introduce John Geddes. While you may be familiar with John, he's a very accomplished architect. He's been significantly involved with the redevelopment of the Shelton waterfront. He's developed numerous multifamily projects and he's the principal of Primrose Development, who's the applicant, and also an architect. So I'm going to turn this over to John, who will take you through the architecture and the floor plans and explain his thinking behind the development of this project. John, if I can turn over to you. And John, if you need Chris to operate your plans, just state what you'd like to have him call up, because he has all the plans on his at his fingertips. John? I don't know, Emmeline, can you see John Getz? Has he been?
He's here. He's part of the call. I can request to unmute him.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Can you
while
hear
we're waiting for Mr. Gids, who I hear is just coming on, if Chris can you go back to the aerial photo, please? I just want to clarify something that I may have misheard. So I apologize if I misheard what you had said. Your driveway for this site is controlled by the light, but
Yes.
it's the light, as I understand it, it's the light for the northbound Merritt Parkway ramp, not the light that's opposite the medical building. Is that correct?
Correct. I apologize. There's actually two lights there. There's a light for the medical building, which is directly south, and then there's a light for the entrance and exit to the Merritt Parkway.
Correct.
It'll be controlled by the northernmost light. I apologize if I confused you or the commission. Thank you, Jim.
Commissioners, for some reason, I can't seem to get on the video, and I wasn't able to unmute. Thank you for unmuting me. But
That's fine.
I don't know what's going on. But anyway, for the record, I'm John Getz. I'm the president of Primrose Companies, which includes companies such as Primrose Development, LLC, and Primrose Companies Realty, along with the architectural firm of Getz Associates that I'm a principal in. Basically, I've been working on this site for almost 10 years. And, there's over the past 10 years, there were various issues with the site, more specifically with access to sewers. And as the commission knows, in recent months, we did submit an application for tax changes, that would allow for just a standard market rate project of 80 units. And the commission decided that they were not willing to entertain a tax change or tax change amendments, and therefore it brought us to this, point of filing the A30G application. I'm committed to this site, and I believe that this site is one that will provide appropriate housing. As Attorney Rizzio has stated, I've been involved in design, development, and construction for 40 years. My offices are based in Bridgeport and have been in Bridgeport for 40 years. It's a family company with about 12 members of the family involved. And we've tackled major development projects such as the Shelton Riverfront development, which right now we're looking at about 750 units of residential development. Most of it market rate, but we do have some mixed income housing that's now under construction. In this particular case here, the proposal, this building is similar to the building that the commission recently approved on Black Rock Turnpike. Similar in the sense of the topography, whereby at Park Avenue, you have one grade, and as you go to the rear of the property, the grade varies by about 20 feet. And so in designing this building, I had to take into consideration the topography. The proposal is, as stated, 120 units. The units are 61 bedroom, 62 bedroom, and 60 of the units containing a den office. The average size of the units are 850 square feet to 1,200 square feet. I did not introduce any efficiencies in here. The main reason was that the market that I was trying to, attract, and that was not geared for students. It was more geared for the workforce housing. As part of the development, there is one section in the front of the building adjacent to the first level garage, which has the amenities. And as part of the amenities, we're introducing an exercise room, a meeting room, and a area for self-storage cages. For the use of the tenants. There is multiple elevators that are being introduced, to access. And as stated, there is one underground parking garage. And again, it's all worked out because of, just to comply with the grade. The building is contemporary in design, and it was chose the design based on the fact that it was adjacent to the university, and therefore looking at some of the architecture within the university, I found that many of the new buildings are contemporary in design, and that's how this design was achieved. Again, I was cautious on how I approached the number of parking spaces. I've been in numerous hearings and listening to the concerns of the commission and the commissioners in regards to parking, also realizing that in this location, there is no ability to have off-street parking. So I wanted to make sure that I had adequate parking for the number of units that were being proposed. And I believe that I achieved that. So if there's any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them.
Thank you. If I can't see the video from other commissioners, so I have to figure out if anybody has any questions for Mr. Geddes at this time.
There you go.
Thank you.
I think it was okay.
Anyone? Okay. Oh, and we found, and you got your video to work.
I think it was the attachment that was blocking it.
Very good. So I don't see any hands. I haven't heard anyone. So Attorney Rizzio, please continue.
One thing to mention, John, each unit will have its own open kitchen, a living area, outdoor decks, walk-in closets, washer and dryers in the interior of the units. Is that correct, John?
That is correct.
Okay.
They're meant to be luxury workforce housing.
Right. Okay. What I'd like to do next is have Mike Bertula come before you to talk about our drainage and the engineering aspects of the project.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Mike Paterla. I'm a licensed engineer and surveyor here in the state of Connecticut and member of Huntington Company. And our office is in Fairfield. As Attorney Rizzio said, we had a late request from the fire marshal with regards to our proposed island out in front at the entrance and exit to the Park Avenue. What we had proposed was a raised island, and we changed it to a flattened island where the curbs would be laid on an angle and you'd be able to mount it. The fire marshal asked if we could simply just accomplish that with just a painted island, and we have no problem at all with that. So it'll just be a completely paved opening to Park Avenue and paint to ID the lanes going each way naturally with the painted arrows. As Attorney Rizzio also said, we'll be willing to put a sidewalk from our property on the west side of Park Avenue down to the existing sidewalk down at Sacred Heart. That should not be a problem. And again, that'd have to go before state DOT for their approval. The drainage system is pretty typical. We have a series of catch basins, and at some of the outlets, not 100% of them, we added a dry well to catch silts and dissipate some of the stormwater. That was requested by the engineering department, in particular Laura Pooley. And all the catch basins have 3-foot sumps, which would collect the silts. And it would go down to the northwest corner where we have a stormwater cleaner. And that would exit into the trapezoidal piece that's on the westerlymost side into a detention basin. There'll be some control structures at the detention basin, and that water will exit through a pipe into an existing wetlands that's on state of Connecticut property. Also, as Tony Rizzio mentioned, we're now have an approval to have our sewer hooked up to the sewer out in Park Avenue. That was before the Bridgeport WPCA, and it'll be a pump system. We've got a wet well, a big manhole, and a series of 4 pumps that will work in tandem to take the sewage and pump it into an existing 8-inch sanitary sewer line on Park Avenue.
Can I ask about the wetlands on state property? So basically the any runoff from the site is going to be directed towards this wetlands area on the state DOT property?
No, everything is directed into a sedimentation pond, which is on our property. And
then from there?
And then as the water builds up, there'll be an outlet that'll go through a piping system onto a series of splash stone and then into the state of Connecticut.
Gotcha.
And I studied all the storms that are required by your commission, the 100, the 50, the 10, and the 2, and they all dampen the effects of the storms.
Right.
Considerably, and we also met the Conservation Commission's requirement to have our 2-year storm propose less than the existing, the opposite way, I'm sorry. The 10-year proposed storm is less than the existing 2-year storm that exists now. And,
right.
And again, as Attorney Rizzio said, that was approved in previous months.
Right. And does the plan need to be reviewed or approved by any state agency because it implicates wetlands on state land?
The plans will be reviewed by the state, the traffic department, simply because we've got to have a new driveway out to Park Avenue. And
right.
Sending them to the state, it also goes to, it goes through many departments in the state. A landscaper takes a look at it. The engineering department takes a look at it. And if there's something they don't like, they send us a punch list, as does, your department or conservation department locally. So the state really does the same as the town of Fairfield does. But yes, they'll take a look at every aspect of the plan.
So I'm asking specifically about the incursion, into the wetlands.
Yes, they'll study they'll study my drainage report. Yes, and also the plan where the wetlands are marked. Yes.
And it is the plan. There's been a couple of comments recently by Mr. Geddes and yours. You mentioned the conservation approval. Is the conservation approval that you are relying on for this project the same approval that you received in support of the application that we considered before?
Yes. Yes.
That's Attorney Rizzio?
No changes to the footprint or the limits of disturbance.
Right. And so is any of the plan in terms of the runoff and the detentions and the engineering and the wetlands and all of that plan, has any of that changed from the prior application to this one?
This is Mike Petrillo again. No, because the impervious area that's shown on this plan is the same impervious area that was shown on the previous plan.
Right. So
The impervious areas plus the green areas will end up in that detention pond to the extreme left.
mhm.
So it's the same plan.
The same plan, it's the same system,
Yep.
relying on the same approval. And the argument is because it is the same footprint and all you've done is raise the height of the building by 2 stories. And that in no way affects the amount of runoff or other factors in the engineering plan.
That's correct. Even if the building were enlarged, it's still the same drainage plan simply because impervious building, impervious blacktop is the same, what's called curve number in a drainage study. So it's rather than 100%, it's 98%. 98% of the water that falls down on this project, if it hits a building or if it hits blacktop, will end up getting into our catch basins, getting into our drainage system. So it makes no difference. There's no difference between blacktop or building itself.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wagner, again, John Geddes. I just want to add one item. Again, it was the change that was made to the plan was that the lower level garage was extended, meaning that prior to the prior application, the lower level garage was only halfway into the building as you go from the rear towards Park Avenue. In order to increase the parking, all I did was increase the length of the underground garage to create more parking spaces. And as you stated, basically at just 2 stories to the building. The number of units per floor never changed. Prior, we had 4 stories with 20 units per building. Per floor was 80. By adding the additional 2 stories, it brought us to 120. And again, to increase the number of parking spaces, all I did was extend the garage space, but nothing within the building was enlarged. Nothing within the paved area was modified. Basically, it's the same exact plan that you previously reviewed, with the exception that additional parking was created by extending the garage and 2 floors were added to the building. That's the basic change.
Very good, thank you.
Michael Petrillo, can I ask you to just state one other thing for the record? Because I'm sure there's been some concern from neighbors on Weeping Willow. There'll be no water or drainage directed toward any of the neighbors on Weeping Willow. And in fact, we will be reducing the amount of water that currently flows by basically sheet flow across the property, so that there'll actually be a reduction in the amount of water that that flows off site. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And that's the figures that show the reduction are in the drainage report.
Next, I'd like to call Mike. You're all set?
Yes.
Okay, next, I'd like to ask Mike Galante, who is our traffic expert, to take you through our traffic study, which is very detailed, encompassing, and as you know, Mike is very well respected before this commission. So, Mike, if you can take them through our traffic report, I'm sure the commission may have some questions.
Thank you, Ray. Again, Mike Galante, Odyssey in Hanover. Emmeline, do you have my graphics? Or does Chris?
Chris, that's,
Yeah, I can.
Either way. There we go. See if I can make it bigger. That's good. That's good. Thank you again, Mike Galante, Hardesty in Hanover. I will spend a little bit of time just summarizing the traffic report. I'm taking a different approach with graphics. As you see, I'm trying to summarize instead of showing lots of tables and charts and figures that you may not be able to read under the circumstances of Zoom meetings that we're all, I guess, used to at this point. In the traffic study, we focused on really three intersections along Park Avenue. One with the roundabout on the northerly side of the Parkway overpass with the southbound ramps to the Parkway, the northbound ramps to the Parkway at our site frontage, which will include our site driveway in the future condition, and then immediately to the south, the Bridgeport Hospital access drive. The northbound ramps and the Bridgeport Hospital driveways are controlled with traffic signals. They're interconnected. They operate together. And I believe the town of Trumbull may actually control those with the state of Connecticut. In our traffic study, and due to the pandemic, obviously traffic counting is a little different these days than it was just over a year ago. We are permitted to continue to use the 2018 traffic volumes. We are allowed to use volumes within about 5 years of their basically conducting the traffic counts. So these volumes are still good and acceptable to Conduct Planning Division. We do this throughout the state. We talk to the state when we do a traffic study. In some cases, we do collect new data, and we have to balance it and match it to older data and adjust it and grow it to reflect a design year. In this case, we have a 2023 design year. And since it's residential, we focus on the weekday morning and the weekday afternoon peak hours. Weekday morning is very simple. It was found to be 7:15 to 8:15 because that's what the volume showed us as far as peaking characteristics at the three intersections. The afternoon peak was a little different, and this is not unique, but it does occur. The peaks at each of the three intersections was slightly different. And the reason for this is the volume, for example, in front of the site, the northbound ramps of the Parkway are obviously a little bit busier for resident or motors coming off the Parkway, coming from Stanford or whatever, to the west or south, depending how you look at it. And that increases the volume on that ramp itself. Certainly people getting on the arm ramp to go northbound, which is typically busier than southbound in the afternoon, increases the volume at that intersection itself. So what we did is we didn't just take one hour, 4 to 5 or 5 to 6 and so on, but we took the busiest, highest volumes for each intersection individually. And in the case of the site driveway, the ramp is actually busier from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So we used, in my mind, the worst case. I certainly don't think our residents will be, as far as traffic related to this development, peaking at 7 o'clock at night. That's actually kind of late for any residential development. So we use the highest volumes. And if you can go to the next slide. This is just a summary of volumes under an existing condition, expanded to a 23 condition, Park Avenue along the site frontage and to the south of us towards Sacred Heart University and the hospital driveways. In the morning carries about 1,200 vehicles, about 800 vehicles in the afternoon. The 500 and 400 that you see there is the two-way volume on Park Avenue as you go to the left or over the Parkway Bridge towards the roundabout. You can obviously see the volumes drop off significantly as you go in that direction. Park Avenue is certainly busier to the south of the site itself. The Parkway ramps, if you will, on and off, about 475 vehicles during the morning peak, about 700 vehicles during the afternoon peak. Again, that makes sense as far as commuter patterns. The northbound ramps will be busier, cars coming off that ramp in the afternoon, and in this case, cars getting on the ramp to go towards Trumbull, Bridgeport, and so on the Parkway itself. As I mentioned, we're looking at a 2023 design year. This development, let's assume, is approved, built, and occupied. We assume 2 years from now. So we have a 2023 design year condition. The growth rate of 0.6% per year is from DOT planning. They have percentages of growth for every town in the state. Not every town's the same. Some towns are lower, some towns are higher, but not much higher. You don't see many at 1% per year, or you certainly don't see any at more than 1% per year. 10, 15 years ago, you would see a 2% per year growth, which was somewhat normal. That hasn't happened in well over 10 years. I make the note about dormitory traffic. Someone had made a comment somewhere along the line that we're not accounting for the Sacred Heart activity, and we continue to stay. And we as you know, we did the Sacred Heart, we did very traffic developments. The dormitory use, the construction of those dormitories on Jefferson Street is anticipated to reduce traffic students driving to to campus, whether it's the West Campus or the main campus, from rentals off campus, and the idea of the university is to bring those students onto the campus. In many cases, students are not permitted to have cars if they live on campus. Next slide, please. This is the only graphic I'll show tonight, but this is just simply from the report itself. But this just shows the no-bill traffic condition for the weekday morning in the 2023 design year. It just shows in the circles the volumes for each of the intersections included in the study. The one with the red arrows is the roundabout at the Parkway southbound ramps. The next one down, which is labeled next to the site, is the signalized intersection for the northbound ramps at Park Avenue. Of course, there are no volumes for the driveway under a no-bill condition. That would occur in later figures in the report itself. Then the last bubble, if you will, at the bottom is the hospital driveway. And these are the volumes we use and brought through a process for both weekday morning and weekday afternoon. We added site traffic to these intersections in a future condition. We developed a bill traffic volume condition for AM and PM for 3 intersections. Then eventually analyzed these intersections to determine impact and need for any mitigation. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the proposed development is 120 units. It has a single access drive to Park Avenue opposite the Merritt Parkway northbound ramps. The intersection today is signalized, and I'll touch on that later on as far as how we treat that in a future condition. Site traffic estimates, I don't pick these numbers. This is from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, better known as ITE, in a document called Trip Generation Handbook, published in 2017. This book is now 4 or 5 volumes. It has thousands of land uses in it. And this is, we estimate our traffic based on the type of land use, in this case, the number of floors, the type of unit, whether it's ownership, rental, and so on. And this is what the state of Connecticut DOT planning and traffic departments use. And the town of Fairfield certainly uses the same document and any references from traffic consultants like me. This is what we use as a reference to estimate traffic. And what we've seen in patterns as far as residential development over the last several years, the actual traffic generated per unit has actually gone down a little bit. I think it's because not that people are not driving to work, but the time that people leave in the morning or arrive back home at night is more spread out. Some cases, people are now working at home, which these numbers don't show. So these numbers might actually be lower in the future if people continue to work home. Although if you saw the traffic on I-95 today, you would not have believed that comment. But people are certainly going back to the office, without a doubt. But this development will generate 43 trips in the morning peak hour. That's inbound, outbound, and 53 trips during the afternoon peak hour. This is the volume we use to spread out to the 3 intersections for the 2 peak hours in order to come up with site traffic distribution, if you will, which is the next part down, and eventually the bill traffic volumes. Distribution on Park Avenue from the north, from the eastern direction, if you will, is about 5%. From the south on Park Avenue is about 50%. And the next one down, which says 25% for the Merritt from the east, is really 20%. And then the last one should be 25%. So those two numbers have been flipped by accident, but the report is certainly correct. This is the distribution based on our knowledge of the area where we anticipate people will drive to and from to this site itself. It's based on traffic patterns and our knowledge of many intersections in this part of town, and certainly in Trumbull and to some respects the Bridgeport area of this area. So these are the distribution patterns. We applied these percentages to the site traffic of 43 and 53 trips morning and afternoon. And we developed bill traffic volumes, which I don't have graphics for tonight, but that's the steps we go through to get to a future condition. Next slide, please. Briefly, and I know you typically see my charts that have numbers that you probably can't see, either on boards if we're in person or tonight on a screen. So I just really summarize it. There's a lot of work that goes into this analysis, a lot of detail, a lot of input, volumes, lane widths, grades, speed limits, volume by movement, through left, right, and so on. In this case, traffic signal operations, the timing of the traffic signal phasing, how much green time, how much red time, and so on. So a lot goes into what I just summarized in 3 notes. We maintain levels of service B or better. That's an overall for each of the intersections. It's a different analysis for a signalized intersection. It's a different model for a roundabout. We've analyzed the roundabout as it is today, and of course the traffic signals under the current configuration for existing conditions and a no-build condition, and then in a build condition in the future when we add a driveway to the intersection with the northbound ramps. We of course add an approach to the intersection. We modify the traffic signal to accommodate the extra approach lanes, and we analyze that to determine potential impact and need for changes. So what we found is the intersections operate at certainly acceptable levels of service during each of the peak hours, and the increase in delay is very, very minimal. That's the measured delay per vehicle. I think they're in the range of 1%, 1 second per vehicle on average for each of these intersections. And keep in mind, we're adding 43 to 53 vehicles, not to every intersection beyond the site driveway, but we're adding to an intersection that's carrying, if you just look at volume on Park Avenue for the moment, that's about 1,200 vehicles. So adding a little bit of traffic doesn't change the operation of that intersection. And this chart is in full detail in the report. This is something we show in Fairfield, but the increase in traffic intersections for morning and afternoon time periods, I'm giving you a range here. It's from 0.9% to 2.75% increase in traffic at the intersections during the morning peak hour. And during the afternoon is the 1.42% to up to 3.8% at the three intersections. Of course, the side driveway intersection with Park and the northbound ramps is the higher number, the 2.75 in the morning and the 3.82 in the afternoon. That's where we add all of our traffic to the intersection. Before I get to the mitigation, just want to touch on the intersections that were selected for this analysis. Is the three intersections I mentioned at the very beginning. There may be some comments that we should have included intersections to the south, for example, at Jefferson Street. That's been analyzed before, certainly by our firm. We know exactly how it operates. Introduced a new traffic signal a few years ago. We've introduced a pedestrian crossing. It's definitely a busy intersection, without a doubt. I'm not going to deny that. I've watched it, and I understand how it's operating. But the reason why that's not added in is if you follow the guidelines by Connecticut DOT and OSTA, which is a step we will eventually go to, we pick intersections for analysis based on the volume we're adding to the intersection. And the Jefferson Street doesn't reach that threshold. We're adding, and I know I wrote the numbers down, but we're adding about 20 to 27 vehicles to that intersection during the morning and afternoon peak hours. That's, a car or two for each phase or every minute or two at the intersection. So it's not going to change how the intersection operates. So we didn't leave it out on purpose. It was not included because it doesn't meet that threshold as far as what the town would look for if it's following CONDOT guidelines, and it's certainly not something CONDOT would look for based on their guidelines. And we always follow their guidelines. It's not a selection we determine. It's something we try to follow in order to provide the assessment of impacts to the area. Mitigation, obviously a new driveway is being constructed from the site to Park Avenue. It'll tie into the existing traffic signal. The existing traffic signal will need to be modified. We'll add heads facing the driveway. We'll have vehicle detection, which would be probably a video camera and not detectors in the pavement anymore. So that driveway will only get a green light if there's a car on the driveway exiting. So if there is no car coming, that driveway doesn't get a green, and that doesn't mean that Park Avenue stops for no one. What's driving the green on the side street is really the ramp itself, of course. The driveway itself will have very low volume compared to the ramp itself. And we will have the ramp and the driveway go at the same time because they can, based on the volumes and the analyses and so on. Of course, DOT will review this. And to touch on review of wetlands and so on, the process with Connecticut DOT, I can tell you about 8 different departments and divisions that CONDOT will review this application. Everything from traffic to drainage to the traffic signal to wetlands and within the state right away along the parkway. So yeah, this will be reviewed in some detail, certainly after the process with the town is somewhat complete. So from a mitigation point of view, there's nothing to change because of the impacts of this development other than, yes, we're modifying the existing traffic signal. And as Ray mentioned, we will look at sight lines, and we have. The driveway is controlled with traffic signal, and the state will actually review and approve that traffic signal modification. So that's a summary of a fairly detailed traffic report that we always try to provide to the commission in the town. And I can answer questions now or later. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any members of the commission have any questions for Mr. Galante? So what was the approximate difference between the impact of changing the development from, the prior proposal and the added, the additional 2 stories and so forth?
Well, I believe the last one was 80 units, if I'm
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Yes, so we're adding 40 units. So the impact is actually quite minimal because the amount of traffic we're at, and I don't remember the exact numbers for the 80 units versus, I can figure it out why we're talking about something else. But if we're about a half a trip per unit, 40 trips, we're adding about 20 vehicles to give you a range. Okay.
Yeah, as an approximate, right? Okay.
Yeah, so we're adding that traffic to the roadway system in the intersections. Not that there's no impact, but it's a minimal impact and nothing really changes as far as the results of the analysis.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Galante? Okay, I don't see any hands and I don't hear anyone. So,
Thank you.
Attorney Rizzio?
Yeah, can I just ask Mr. Galante to state a few things for the record? One, Mike, if you could state for the record that you believe there's more than adequate parking to service the 120 units with the 191 parking spaces, that you believe the interior circulation on the building is safe and not hazardous, and that the light controlled entry exit is does not create any kind of safety hazard that would warrant any difficulty with getting this project approved.
Going with the last question first, the intersection driveway controlled by a traffic signal that exists but will be modified. It's certainly an appropriate control for a traffic signal in the driveway. Would it be safe? Sure, you have a red and a green control for that driveway, so no one's pulling out unless the state says we can have a right turn on red. They may not. So it's a controlled exit from the driveway. So I think that'd be perfectly fine. As far as the internal circulation and parking layout, it's a very straightforward, pattern, if you will, around the outside of the building and in the garage. So that's perfectly fine as far as operational characteristics and certainly safety from the, layout perspective. And that goes to the driveway alignment and layout of the driveway itself also. The painted median is just as good as a let's say a raised center median. The state will not have a problem with a flush painted median, which would be probably yellow paint. The other choice would have been a raised median with maybe some landscaping in it, but to accommodate the fire department, there's absolutely no issue with that. As far as the parking on site, 1.6 spaces per unit is more than we've seen in some of the other developments that I've been involved with in town. And based on standards we follow, which is again from ITE, it's a different handbook. It's a parking generation handbook. Typically, they're looking for 1 to 1.25 spaces per unit for this type of development. So we're perfectly fine with 1.6.
All right, Michael, thanks for stating that for the record.
Thank you.
If there's no questions for Mr. Galante, I'll kind of sum up, just taking you through our affordability plan, not the actual details of affordability plan, which have been submitted and are also subject to the review of your Affordable Housing Commission, which we will certainly incorporate any comments they have. But I'd like to make a little presentation with regard to affordability, and then I'll sum up and make myself and all the experts available to any questions by the commission, if that's all right with you.
Yes, please.
Okay, with regard to affordability, as you know, this proposed development includes a housing opportunity or affordable housing component as provided by the Affordable Housing Provision of 8-30G. It meets the standards of 8-30G by setting aside 30% of the dwelling units, which totals 36 dwelling units will be added to the town's coffers here under this development as a housing opportunity for affordable for a period of 40 years. One thing I can say is there is a huge demand for this affordable housing. We had a project that we represent. There were 9 units of affordable housing that were put on the market. They were leased in less than 10 minutes. The demand from teachers, policemen, restaurant workers, some nurses, the demand for affordable housing in a town like Fairfield is tremendous. And we believe these 36 units will be 36 of the most desirable units in the town. They have to be similar and consistent in nature, location, and amenities as every other unit that is in the building. The details of the set aside are enumerated in our affordability plan. 18 of the dwelling units will be offered at a rental prices that will preserve the housing for which persons and families pay 30% or less of income, where income is less than or equal to 60% of the median income as defined by Section 8-30G, being 10 one-bedroom units and 8 two-bedroom units. 18 dwelling units will be offered at rental prices which preserve the housing for which persons and families pay 30% or less income, which such income is less than or equal to 80% of the statewide median income as defined by Section 8-30G. Once again, 8 one-bedroom units and 10 two-bedroom units. These rental prices target families with incomes comparable to many of the town of Fairfield's municipal and Board of Education employees. There will be restricted deed covenants to ensure that these dwelling units are rented and at such prices. The deed covenants will restrict these dwelling units for a period of 40 years as defined in Section 8-30G. This housing opportunity or affordable housing component results in greater housing opportunities for the citizens of Fairfield. The revised plans designated which units shall be affordable. A multitude of town-produced documents over the years attest to the need for affordable housing in Fairfield. The 1988 Affordable Housing Plan for Fairfield highlighted while the town boasts a vibrant real estate market, affordable housing has not been a part of that growth, and the opportunities for rental or sale housing have been greatly diminished. This lack of opportunities particularly affect young people, single, divorced, and little populations, as stated in that plan. So also it's stated in that request for qualification, the consultant stated the lack of affordable housing is a significant issue many communities face. This is especially true in Fairfield, where in 2012, now granted that's 9 years away, and I would think that what's going on right now is made the demand for affordable housing even more popular. At that point, the single-family home topped at about 521,000. Many elderly homeowners wish to downsize, cannot find housing to suit their needs. 84% of the town's housing stock is comprised of single-family units. That may have changed a little bit with the recent apartment projects that have been handled. So our applicant proposes to continue to work with the Affordable Housing Commission in developing affordable housing. The 5-year strategy plan covering October 1st through the 10th in September 2015, submitted by the Department of Housing and Urban Development as a requirement of receiving a community development block grant, stated affordable housing affordability is a widespread issue within Fairfield, and a statistical analysis found that the town does not have a large supply of rental housing, regardless of whether it's affordable. Even that small supply of rental housing primarily consists of seasonal and student housing. So what we believe is that there is clearly, and this commission knows, a demand for affordable housing. It's been proven in the marketplace and it's been proven statistically. We believe these 36 units in this project will go a long way to provide housing, affordable housing. It will also provide, what's unique about this project, we believe, it will also provide a workforce housing. We are in an area, we are surrounded probably in the area that has the most significant workforce in the town of Fairfield, with the number of employees at Sacred Heart University and the number of employees across the street at the medical center across the street. So for all those reasons, we believe this project qualifies to be treated under Section 8-30G. When you look at Section 8-30G, this board is given the responsibility to basically state that they would find in order of an applicant they would find in favor of an application like this unless the commission could find the decision is necessary to protect substantial public interest in health, safety, or other matters the commission may legally consider. In this instance, there is literally no demand on any of the utilities that are offered by the town. The water is public service water. We have a wetlands approval. We are improving the drainage on the property. There is no safety concerns with regard to the entrance and exit, both in and out of the site, and then also with regard to the internal circulation. We believe we met the fire department and have designed this project so that it's completely all emergency vehicles completely circle the project, and the project will also have full sprinkler system. We don't believe we'll have any negative impact on any neighboring properties. We only have one house that abuts us, and I believe the property is probably, I think from the house, it's a couple hundred feet before you get from our building to the house. With regard to the height, which is maybe a question some of the commission may be concerned, we believe this is consistent with the height of other buildings that have been approved in the area by this commission. For example, the Elizabeth Ann Seton Hall Dormitory is 6 stories of residential housing. So is the Thomas Merton Hall, both ways located on the Sacred Heart campus, just 1 block away from this project. Additionally, if you go up and down Park Avenue, you will see many buildings, residential buildings that are over, although they're not in Fairfield. They are the Roncalli Dormitory, which is just down the street, is 10 stories on Park Avenue. We know the Jewish Home for the Elderly is about 60 feet high. And if you go further down Park Avenue, you see Embassy Towers at 15 stories, the Inwood at 11 stories, the executive apartments at 12 stories. I'm sorry, Park Royal's 11 stories, Inwood's 12 stories, and the executive house is 8 stories. Across the street is a 550-car parking garage, and right down the road at 4185 Black Rock Turnpike, the commission approved a building which is basically 72 feet in height in total. So we believe that the size of this building, the height of this building, the bulk of this building, the amount of the parking that is provided in this building all provides a safe, consistent project that is consistent with other projects that have been approved in the area and have no negative effect on any of the adjoining property owners. As far as the other situation, it would be to see that you would have to determine that these health, safety, and other matters outweigh the public interests for affordable housing. We clearly believe that this does not. The town of Fairfield desperately needs affordable housing. The demand is there. My gut instinct that these 36 units, when they come on the market, will be devoured within a matter of minutes. And we also provide that you also would have to provide that such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing development. We don't believe that any reasonable changes are required. The height is consistent with those buildings that are in the surrounding area. The parking greatly exceeds any of the parking requirements of previously approved affordable housing projects. This project will be supported by the great employment, will provide housing to the great number of employees that are located within walking distance of this project, along with the school, and its access to the highway will allow people to get direct access to the highway without traveling through the streets of Fairfield. So for all those reasons, we believe we satisfy all of the requirements of Section 8-30G and respectfully request the applicant's application for a certificate of zoning compliance. I'm happy to answer any other questions. All of our experts have remained on the phone and are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is any commissioners any questions? Sure. We have Commissioner Braun.
Can you hear me okay?
You can actually, yes, but it would be helpful if you spoke up.
Okay. I was trying to compare the 2 sets of plans to figure out where the extra parking is going. The old plan we looked at a year ago, I guess, had 158 spaces, I think, and the new one has 191. If that's correct, then you're adding 33 spaces. Is that all subsurface? Where's the extra parking going? Right?
There will basically be, if you look at the first page, you'll see there's now been added a lower level garage plan that has 61 spaces.
So is that below where the garage was last time we looked at this, like a lower down into the earth?
It basically encompasses the whole building.
In the prior application,
See the difference in the plans, honestly.
Commissioner Braun, again, John Geddes, the previous application, the lower level garage only went halfway into the building. This new plan takes the garage and carries it all the way to the end, and that's where the additional parking came in. So it's not external, it's all internal. It was just an extension of the parking garage.
In the old plan, what was there in place of the extension?
It was just unexcavated.
An unexcavated area. So what will happen is the property will be fully excavated under the building.
Okay. Which direction is the new excavation going? Towards Willow Street? Towards the
No, towards Park Avenue.
Park Avenue. So toward the front of the building.
Okay, because I've driven by there. It's extremely a steep incline. I might have to drive by again to figure it out. But so the wetlands agency did not require a new permit because the footprint is the same?
The limits of disturbance, the footprint, the drainage is exactly the same. We discussed with staff and believe that since there were no changes at all to the impervious surface, the footprint of the building, that there was no need to go back to wetlands.
But the excavation into the ground is different than it was before, though, quite a bit, I imagine. Is there going to be blasting involved?
No, the excavation, basically, it was going to happen regardless because I had to build the foundations for the building. The only difference is that at that time, we didn't need the extra parking. So therefore, there was no reason to continue the garage. Now, with the additional units, the decision I made was to do that. Again, as my concern was to make sure that from a business, not necessarily from a zoning perspective, but from a business perspective, that we have adequate parking to accommodate the tenants. And that's why I went and increased it by, the 30-some parking spaces. But if you look at this plan here, that's online, you'll see that the area basically, it existed, but it wasn't, it didn't accommodate parking. It was below. So all I did is just extend that garage, continued it towards the front of the building.
Did the wetlands agency give like a letter of conformance or something? Can you put whatever they have into the record so I could look at it? If you're relying on the old permit, can you put that in? Because I only saw it in the old file, not the new file.
Sure.
As well as any like new approval where you don't need.
We'll be happy to get. We'll be happy to talk to wetlands and get them to. Hopefully, the staff will give us something prior to the next hearing. My understanding, I'd spoken to Joel Green, who represents the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, and we've expressed the desire to. They wanted to have a sit down with us, and Joel requested that the public hearing be held open, and we will. So the public hearing won't be closed tonight, and we'll try and get that information for you before the next hearing.
I have a few other pieces of information that I would like to have. I don't see any. Maybe I'm looking. Maybe there's another package that came out that I didn't see because I might have missed the first time you were here. Is there a code review minutes provided to the package?
Kathy, you're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit, but I think you're asking about whether there's any code review. I didn't see one in our packet either. I didn't hear that. You broke up.
Could we have code review minutes for this project? One for the old project, but I don't know for the new.
There wasn't a second code review meeting. What happened were the plans were then, I believe, Mr. Went can confirm it, I believe all the plans were then resubmitted to the departments, and the departments made comments. The departments that had additional comments, I believe, would have made their comments to the planning and zoning office. But there was not a separate code review meeting for this application, since it was so similar to an application that had previously went through all the code review.
Okay. I know I asked this last time around also, was the survey on this impact on the state property? Because it does like it's not touching what is Mill River watershed, which is a 144-foot upland that there could be some impact on the wild. Is there anyone done a wildlife survey for this application?
No, no additional plans have been done. There's been no change in the limits of disturbance or in the impervious that has been previously approved and commented by all the departments. They have all seen the plans, and as noted, that's where the comment from the fire department emanated with regard to maintaining a level island on the entrance and exit.
And has anyone, is there going to be blasting required at all? And will the new excavation require blasting? And has anyone done a subsurface geological survey? Talked about other projects.
No, but any blasting will have to, that is required, will have to go and be approved by the fire department. And pre-blast surveys will have to be done by any neighboring properties, and it'll all be supervised by the fire marshal.
I understand that, but the surface geological survey show things that happen to ground, not necessarily invading people's well.
We did not do that. We don't believe it's required. There's no wetlands on our property, and I don't think there's any. We don't think it's necessary in this application. Any blasting that's done, we will do it in accordance with the town regulations.
And one last question: what is the height of this in relation to the Merritt Parkway? The height of these buildings are now 80 foot tall. The last project was, I think, 47 feet tall. I don't know if that's not,
I think the building's increased by 20 feet. John, do you want to address the height?
Okay.
Oh, basically, it's 20 foot higher than the previous building.
Right. What are those numbers?
I don't have the, I'm at home now, but.
No, we don't need the old application. What's the height of the current proposal?
82 feet from the ground, and the reason for that is in the rear because of the parking underneath, and in the front it's 60 feet.
Okay, so that means that in the rear, the prior proposal was 62, and in the front was 40.
Right. That's correct.
That's a pretty simple calculation.
Yeah.
I did that by myself, Chairman. Thank you.
Ground level is
Kathy, we can't hear you, Kathy. Right? Kathy, we can't hear you. You're breaking up.
Okay. The ground level is higher.
Kathy, I'm very sorry.
Okay, that's good. I'll wait time. I'll have a better.
I want you to ask your questions. I really do, but you're very. It's very hard to hear you.
There's feedback. Yeah.
If I understood the question, Mr. Chairman, I think she's asking the height of the building as it compares to the Merritt Parkway surface.
Can we get a thumbs up on that, Kathy? Okay, thank you. Do you have
There's a steep grade down to the Merritt. I would assume Michael Bertul would probably be the only one qualified to even come close to telling us what the elevation would be at where the pavement is to the Merritt to where our building is. But you got to remember, we're up on a hill as relates to the Merritt. Mike, is there any chance you would be able to do you have any changes down to the Merritt on any of your plans?
No, I do not. Not in the set that I have in front of me. No, I don't have the Parkway pavement. No.
It looks like I've seen a plan, and Chairman, a portion of it is about elevation 222 in our ground floor. In the front of the building's at 270 and about 230 to 240 midway down the building. It's just a steep downgrade from Park Avenue down to Weeping Willow. And then there's actually two grade changes. You have the grade change from Park Avenue down to Weeping Willow. Then you have the grade change from our property down to the Merritt.
Right. And so, it varies, obviously, and the difference between the elevation of the Merritt with respect to the elevation of the ground floor of the building. Right. But suffice it to say that the elevation of the ground floor of the building is higher than the elevation of the Merritt Parkway. So it sort of sits up. Yeah.
The building will sit, our ground floor will be higher than the pavement of the Merritt Parkway.
Okay. I think that's and we don't have a specific number, but a rough guesstimate is anywhere from 10 to 20 feet or so.
Yes. At least.
Yeah, at least. Okay, so maybe a little bit more. And then you add on top of that the 80 feet, 60 to 80 feet, of the top of the building, and you're looking at, probably anywhere from 68 or 100 feet as a barrier, as a difference between
Also
that.
remember, there's over 150 feet. It's heavily treed on an angle all the way down to the Merritt. So it's not as if somebody's going to look out their window and see, a 100-foot concrete wall. There's going to be 50-foot high trees, 40-foot high trees going 150 feet down from our property to the Merritt.
I do understand that, and something tells me that before this public hearing is over, I'm going to see a picture of the view of the proposed building from the Merritt Parkway.
I'm gonna volunteer Chris Russo to stand out in the center of the Merritt Parkway and take a picture for you, Chairman. No problem. I might have one less associate at the next public hearing, but we'll get you the picture.
Now I wasn't meaning you, but I'm anticipating that I'm going to see that before the public hearing is closed from someone.
No problem.
Commissioner Braun. Yeah, can't hear that. Would you have any more questions? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Very well. We're now taking to hand signals to conduct the meeting, right? This is fantastic. Any other commissioners have any questions for Attorney Rizzio or any of his guests? No, seeing none. Very good. Thank you, Attorney Rizzio. I do understand that you've agreed with Attorney Green to hold the hearing open so that I don't know that we're going to finish tonight anyway. We have a curfew at 10 o'clock, as we all know. But in any event, we will keep this public hearing open, and we'll resume at the next regularly scheduled hearing. Mr. Wendt, is that right?
Yes, that's what I would anticipate. Our next meeting is on the 22nd of this month.
Or June 22. Very good. All right. So with that, I will turn now to public comment. As all of you just heard, we will be keeping this hearing open. We've got about 45 minutes left before our curfew. For anyone who would like to be heard tonight, please feel free. If you would choose to provide your comments at our next meeting, you can do that as well. You can also submit written comments, which would certainly be part of our record. We all read those comments and take those very seriously. In fact, the written comments are very helpful because, like anything written, we can review it and study it, as opposed to the public comment portion, which is fleeting. So with that said, sign up in the chat or raise your hand when I call on you. Ms. Harrigan?
We have two people who have requested to speak.
Great.
First, we have Mark Anthony Galucci, and then second, we have Bethel Rooney.
Excellent. Mr. Galucci. Do we still have Mr. Galucci on the line?
He's still there. I'll request that he unmute.
It looks like Beth Rooney said she'd prefer to comment at the next meeting, but it looks like Mark is here, so.
Mr. Galucci.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Mark Anthony Galucci. I live at 279 Weepenwell Lane and have since 1962. I want to make a few points. We have written testimony, but I want to add to that and respond to the developer's presentation. The development is too big for the site. The site is almost entirely covered by structure and paved areas. The natural drainage of the land into the creek and waterways that flow parallel to the parkway and behind my house will be lost and the wetlands will dry up. There is not enough parking. Where will visitors park? People be parking at night on weekends at the medical center across the street. That's what's going to happen. This application is disingenuously being presented as affordable housing. Who uses affordable housing? Elderly people, people with disabilities. This project has no handicap accessible units. Where are the extra large accessible bathrooms? Families need affordable housing. This isn't designed for families. This is 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. The traffic analysis, sorry to say, is flawed and unreliable. The traffic expert uses a study done in 2018 as his basis. In 2018, Sacred Heart University was not nearly as large as it is now, nor as large as it's becoming. In 2000, there are about 3,000 more students at Sacred Heart now than there were in 2018. There are also at least 250 more staff people working there. And it's only growing more. This September, 2 large dorms will be opening. Any reliable traffic analysis will be conducted today, not in 2018, and will be done during the school year at peak Sacred Heart University traffic time, not peak commuting times. The report also claims that the site will only generate 43 a.m. trips and 53 p.m. trips. We're supposed to believe that 120 apartments will only generate that many trips as everyone is stuck to stay home and not use their cars. The traffic count for the Merritt Parkway is ridiculously low. I have 7 windows. I'm looking out one of them right now. I can see the car lights go by on the parkway. 7 windows, 2 doors. I have a perfect view of Merritt traffic. In early May, for the fun of it, between the hours of 7:30 and 8:45 a.m., I counted 60 cars per minute going southbound and 27 cars per minute going northbound. And COVID is not even over yet. Imagine what's going to happen when everyone goes back to the office. I invite the traffic consultant, anybody else who wants to come to breakfast at my house here, and we can sit and watch out the window and you can count the traffic. The traffic report is not accurate at all. Not even close. The only time a parkway traffic flows at a lower rate is when there's an accident or there is construction. And guess what happens when that happens? Everyone gets off the parkway and they use Jefferson Street as their bypass road. Remember, there's very few roads that can take you parallel to the parkway and across town. Jefferson Street's one of them. Then you gotta go all the way down Park Avenue, Wilson Street to get to the next one. Nobody does that. Everybody uses Jefferson Street. When that happens, it's nearly impossible to get off of Donald Drive away from Royal Lane in a safe manner. Finally, development would clear the site of trees and place a very large urban-style structure right along the parkway, abutting right up against the parkway, very, very close. The building will be wholly visible year-round, even in the summer when there are leaves on the tree. It would destroy the historic and park-like aesthetic of the Merritt Parkway, and once we ruin that, we'll never get it back. Park Avenue will start to look like the Merritt 7, and we certainly don't want that in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Galucci. See your comments.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Rooney requested to speak at the next meeting, but I believe Mr. Knapp has his hand up, and then it would be Marshall Weiss.
Okay, fantastic. Mr. Knapp?
Hello, I'm here with my wife Anita, and I want to second what my neighbor Mark said. We've been here on Weeping Willow since 1978, been around a while. I have concerns as well about water and traffic, and one that he didn't mention, which is housing values. Our part of town has been hit very hard with a lot of non-residential stuff. In fact, we kind of jokingly say we live on the campus of Sacred Heart University. We traded in one of the best neighbors I've ever had and the largest taxpayer in our town for decades, General Electric, for another group which doesn't pay any taxes in Sacred Heart University. The water situation, I agree. We have been inundated with the building of the dorms on the hill. And we've heard that term catchment basin had to do with Casper Associates, and it didn't work. And it basically flooded out my basement. And we had to put a new roof on the house and stuff like that. We're never compensated at all by Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart, of course, initially said when we did an agreement between the town of Fairfield and Sacred Heart, it was sort of an unstated understanding that they would be purely a commuter campus. It didn't turn out that way. Now, I think I jokingly in one of my comments that I sent for the last meeting that this was the new North Dorm for Sacred Heart that was this project at Primrose. So water's a problem. And the other thing, I was just absolutely, as the Brits would say, gobsmacked by the fact that the traffic study didn't even include Jefferson Street. That just makes no sense. You can't even get out on the street some days, getting out of Weeping Willow, whichever direction you want to go. So those are my concerns: water, housing value, and traffic.
Thank you, sir. And I think Mr. Weiss is next.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Marshall Weiss. I live near that area that there's going to be affected. And if you go, and I've said this before the last meeting, one thing I want to make it, I'm not curious. If 80 units was too large, why do they have the nerve to come back with 120 units? It doesn't make any sense. It's sad. Like they're trying to punish us for using our constitutional right to explain it doesn't belong there. You go by the back of my house, we're on the top of the hill, thank God. My neighbors all have ponds going all the way down Weeping Willow Lane near the Merritt Parkway. This is a bunch of baloney about the base, whatever they're going to have. So the water can, and I'd like to know, this is off the record, on the record, rather, who's going to pay for all the damage that is going to be done? I'd like to have a written thing between the developer and the town of Fairfield that they will take responsibility for all the water damage that may result if the bases do not work. Also, the traffic flow, like Mr. Knapp and Mr. Galucci said, it's disgusting. They're not taking in Jefferson Street. What about if, God forbid, somebody is sick on Weeping Willow Lane or Donna Drive or even in the university? How can the emergency vehicles get up when it's bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper traffic? They're not addressing this. It's like comparing peaches to watermelon. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. They have a lot of flawed arguments. And I think also that if people are going to get hurt by the indifference, I think the developer should be held responsible for the pain and suffering of these people. It's not fair to us, and it's definitely not. And if you go walk up Jefferson Street, it's dangerous. And if students walk up there and people are driving down like bats out of hell, you're not taking into account the speeding of a lot of these people. I think that the developer should pay for around-the-clock policemen to patrol the area. We're getting a lot of traffic at a high rate of speed, and that's not even taken into account. And all the accidents that probably will result, I think the developer should pay for the police and pay for part of the people being hurt. And that should be an agreement between the town and the developers. Why should they get away building a monstrosity that they increased by 1/3, which doesn't belong there in the first place, and the people suffer that live in that area? And also the innocent people that are students there. They're walking down the street and someone's going to bang into them. It's going to present a very bad traffic problem. And I think they should be held responsible. Now go away, make millions of dollars, and the hell with the people that live there and the future students that are going down the street. And those are my main things. Now also, I'm not sure, so I don't want to be saying it wrong. Is the Merritt Park Conservatory, is that a historic district or historic landmark? Then why can they just ignore it if it really is. That I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
I believe it is a historic landmark.
So, you heard us talking about Attorney Green, who will be
Yes.
speaking, next time. He's representing the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, and he can address that.
Because the truth is, I think it's a lovely building, but it's too big for that area. And they know that. So why, if it was too big for 80 units, how do they have the nerve to come back for 120 units? It was only 2 months ago. They know it doesn't make any sense. They're just making jackasses out of the people on Weeping Willow Lane and Jefferson and Donna Drive. They know it doesn't belong there, yet they keep coming back. If you deny that, they maybe want to build a 20-story building or a Walmart there. It doesn't belong. Why can't they just build 5 or 10 units of affordable housing that would fit there? That's my argument. It doesn't belong there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Ms. Harrigan, how are we doing?
I don't have anybody else listed. If we want to, if anybody else would like to speak and wants to either let us know in the chat or raise your hand, that would be great. I don't see anybody.
There are a couple of, I will say there are a couple of call-in users that that were unmuting before, so I don't know if any of the
So we'll just call
that
open
can't
call.
be seen, if any of those wanted to unmute and announce themselves.
Yep. It's an open mic night, as it were. Okay. Well,
if there isn't anybody, I just had one add-on in terms of traffic studies. Do pedestrians count? They're building.
You need to identify yourself.
Oh, it's David Knapp.
Yeah. Okay. Typically,
yeah.
we like to keep, and it's not a problem tonight, but we like to keep things organized. And when you have an opportunity to speak, everybody speaks their piece one time. But please go ahead and we can accommodate you tonight.
Yeah, it was just a small comment. When you do traffic studies, I think it ought to also take into account pedestrians, and they're building a walkway from the facility down to Jefferson Street. And then where do those people go? I mean, mostly it's going to be students or workers, faculty members at Sacred Heart. Some are going to be going to the West Campus, some to the East Campus, but the extra pedestrian traffic is a huge safety issue. I mean, we've seen pedestrians getting hit on Jefferson, and certainly in the winter when the hill just up from between Donna Drive and Weeping Willow, that's a very, very treacherous hill. And we see a lot of accidents there, and pedestrians might be involved. That was all. Thank you for giving me the extra time.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, then, hearing no other members of the public wanting to be heard tonight.
I think Attorney Green has a question.
Well, we're holding the meeting open for Attorney Green to talk on June 22nd. Are we not? Attorney Green, how can we help?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Joel Green, representing the Merritt Parkway Conservancy. I do want to thank the Commission for your generous courtesy in continuing this matter. The Conservancy greatly appreciates that. Just one point, Mr. Chairman, on that request regarding the elevation of the building from the parkway, is it possible to get some sort of a cross section that shows the elevation difference between the surface of the parkway there and the elevation of the building? That's my only request.
Sure. So I'm not going to the applicant. If the applicant would like to provide that, I think it would be helpful for both the commission as well as for the Conservancy and the members of the public. But if they choose not to, that's their prerogative. I would also suggest, Attorney Green, that you could put something like that together fairly easily through your client with respect to the elevations we see the elevations on their plans. I'm sure that the Conservancy has.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, I also want to acknowledge the generous courtesy of the applicant and Attorney Rizzio and his courtesy. Thank you.
Very well.
Can I
Thank you.
suggest that Attorney Green take the picture from the middle of the Merritt Parkway, or is that okay?
So you listen, you heard me. I can't be more diplomatic than that. Right? So, somebody is going to prepare a cut shot of the elevations between the Merritt and the building and whatever. So you guys figure it out. All right. Excellent.
I look forward to working with Attorney Russo on that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Wendt, anything further?
No, sir.
All right. Very good. Thank you, everyone. I'll hold the meeting, this hearing open and adjourn the meeting. Good night.